Welcome, Lund loyalists, YouTubers watching on John Lund Unleashed and the Bay Area Sports Collective, those watching on X and Instagram and listening on Apple and Spotify. It's John Lund Unleashed and JohnLundUnleashed.com. Brought to you by Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center. Right now featuring amazing stem cell technology. For all your pain and for the guys, check out the latest in low-T and testosterone therapy to make you feel like yourself again. Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center at riopelcosmetic.com. Now, all juiced up and ready to go. Here's Johnny.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for joining us on a Tuesday edition of the program. A ton to go over. As always, look who's talking. John Lynch spoke yesterday. Jed York spoke this morning. Spoke this morning. And Kyle Shanahan gripping coffee like it's life. Spoke to the assembled media as well. So we'll go over all of those things with you. Also, Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks was great, but I'm not going to back down off of my Jordan Hicks hill, even though he was tremendous, and you have to admit that. Weird in Sacramento last night, and as I tell my Sacramento friends all the time, it's nothing against Sacramento. It's just they shouldn't be playing in a minor league ballpark. I don't have any problem with the A's if they were to somehow settle in Sacramento long term and got themselves a major league stadium, but it's not. It's just different. It's just different, and you should be playing in a major league stadium. And we saw some of the shortcomings, and I don't know if it's going to be a bandbox after the Cubs scored 18 runs, but that is something that we need to discuss today as well. But a lot of the today is going to be hearing from Kyle Shanahan, and David Lombardi did a great job of setting the camera up. So not only is it just the quotes, and a lot of times it's like, well, he said this, but you want to see him say it and hear him say it. So I got about 3 or 4 of the most relevant Kyle Shanahan cuts from this morning at the owners' meetings in, or the NFL meetings in Palm Beach. I have one from Jed York that doesn't lend itself to the negotiations, but again, to me, it's another sign that things are going in a positive direction for Brock Purdy in these contract negotiations. So I'll give you a little bit of reporter's insight into those kind of things. Giants recap, as I said, the A's from Sacramento. Great gesture having the 24s for Ricky Henderson and the Dubs. And I know we say this a lot, but it is certainly the most important week for the Warriors for the season. I don't think there's any question. In the Grizzlies, this is one of those games tonight where it's a gotta have it, because the Grizzlies are struggling. They're a complete mess. They just replaced their coach. You can jump these guys. I think that they're rocketing to the bottom, and I don't mean of the Western Conference, but certainly of the standings as far as the teams that are going to make the playoffs. I think there's no question that the Grizzlies are going to be a play-in team. So we got a ton to go over, a great bunch of video. Do not move because it's awesome. Before we do roll call this morning, welcome. If you are new to the show, it's John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Was with KMBR for years and 95.7 The Game and in the Bay Area. So if you are outside of the Bay Area, welcome. If you are new around here, welcome. Please say hello in the chat. If you're watching on X, thank you very much, as I'm watching the numbers grow on X right now, at John Lund Radio. Let me, as I always do, I can always forget about Instagram, so let me hit up our Instagram listeners and viewers so we can do that. I just hit Instagram. So Instagram is with us. Also, you're watching on Facebook, John Lund. You can friend me up or hit John Lund Unleashed there. LinkedIn, we're bothering those people, and Twitch. Thanks, however you are watching. We'd love it if you jumped into the chat room on YouTube, and that's a great way to watch, also to interact. And if you are in that room and you're new, please say hello. Make sure that you subscribe to both John Lund Unleashed and to the Bay Area Sports Collective. You see that B in the corner, and you're like, hey, I get John Lund Unleashed. What's that BSC? Bay Area Sports Collective. If you would hit up a like and follow on that one, that is my show. Also, Tom Tolbert, formerly, of course, of KMBR, and Polymac and Creative Tony. Polymac and Murph did the morning show for years and years and years, and they're doing a great job, too. So all 3 of those shows are in one place, so make sure that you hit those things up. Plus, what'll start happening is opening day is on Friday. I think I'm going to go to the A's because I can't keep talking about this park and the shortcomings of the park, not the people, not Sacramento, nothing like that, just the park that they shouldn't be playing in, and not go to it myself. And I will not deny that the atmosphere last night was really, really cool, at least on TV. And then I was texting with my friend Chris Townsend, who I've known for years, and asked him because he was in the ballpark with Steve Sachs, and he said the same thing. I mean, the ballpark atmosphere was really cool. It's just The rest of it, people sitting on lawns, and it just had a very minor league-ish spring training feel to it. And then the Cubs made the ballpark look really, really small. So I don't know if that's going to be something that happens all season or whatever the case may be. But some good and the bad, some bad from last night. It was just a little bit weird. But we'll get into that conversation as well. And I might head up there. I was thinking on Wednesday, because there's a day game, I might head up there just so that I can see it for myself and then be able to give a firsthand report rather than complete speculation on my part. So we'll do that. But it is episode 103. So my least favorite day of the year, I'll tell you about that. I'm not an April Fool's person. I think that, again, you know me, I'm not serious, and I like to have fun and all those kind of things. And when you're a kid, I understand it. But when news organizations have false things, or an Adam Schefter, or all these people trying to fool everybody, it's just an annoying day. And I'm here to tell you, because maybe you just woke up and you forgot, it's April Fool's. I don't think anybody can be fooled anymore. Everybody tries it on social media. Like, I already saw a thing just because my kid goes to Arizona State that they did a thing. We're going to make the field maroon this year. And they made it, like Boise State has the blue one. They have this maroon field. And it's like, come on, man. We know. So anyway, I do have a story from April Fool's that's kind of funny, though. But my least favorite day of the year, there's no question. John Kyle Jed. So John Lynch spoke yesterday. We discussed some of it, but I want to reiterate a couple of things he said. Kyle Shanahan, as I said, we'll have some video from him. We do have one cut from Jed York, thanks to our good friend Tracy Sandler from the Fangirl Sports Network, and she's there, and this was an interesting thing, but I'll tell you what it means in what Jed York said. Not what he said, but why he said it and what it means. We'll get into that. The Giants recap, you cannot deny, even if you're me saying Jordan Hicks belongs in the 7th inning, that's his spot, that last night he was absolutely tremendous, so we'll get into that. A's game 1 from Sacramento, the number 24s, Dubs and Grizz I talked about, and random stuff happens throughout. I do have a sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol item. I think I put it on the board here. Let me check. I did. I did not read the article. I just think it's really weird, and so I got that. So we do have a caboose piece that I will be adding to everything as well. So anyway, welcome. Happy Tuesday. I hope you are doing great on this Tuesday. Good morning. Let me jump up here and see who's hanging out. Baba Booey, thanks for joining us. That was late last night, 4 a.m. Vernon says, what's up? Nice. Getting up very early. Fiend is here. Tacky, you tripping. What's going on, man? You tripping, and I'll get into this. I have a bunch of Kyle stuff. Ayo! Kyle telling reporters, the owner, meaning that Jake Brendel is one of the best centers in the league. Just another offseason stage. Like I said, what they do is, and I'll explain all this a little bit later after I go through roll call, but just real quickly, it's lying season 24/7, 365. And if you say that your center sucks, which you'd never do, in case you got to keep them, you don't want to tell teams what you're after, even though you can look at the Niners defensive line and say, well, they've got to draft defensive linemen. They're never going to say that. We like Evan Anderson, and we think that Jordan Elliott's going to bounce back and have a nice, that's what they're going to say. Not only because those players are on their team and they're trying to instill confidence in them, but also because you're not going to tell the other teams what you're going to draft and who you're going to go after. So that's kind of why they say nice things just about everybody. I mean, even Jake Moody was asked about today that I'm going to play, and Jake Moody sucked at the end of the year, and Kyle Shanahan was pissed off, but he didn't say bad things about him because they just don't want, the Niners are after a veteran kicker. We better grab this guy ahead of them, or you just don't want to give anybody anything. So that's kind of why they say what they say. So don't believe everything that you hear. And right now, this close to the draft, don't believe anything you hear, because there's leverage and all sorts of stuff like that. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Jazz fan. Good morning, Francis. Ryan D, what's up? Danny Golden, good to see you. Danny, good to see you. Nathan is here. Lynn, did I say that? Kenneth is here. Good morning to you, my friend. Did I already mention Nathan? Yeah, very nice. Great to see everybody this morning. Happy Tuesday. I hope you are doing great. All right, where do we start, man? Oh, let me start with this. April 1st is my least favorite day of the year, only because I'm not a child anymore, even though I act like it a lot. I'm not a child. I'm kind of an adult to a certain point. Physically, I'm an adult. Mentally, comes and goes. Sophomore, certainly. But here's one of the reasons I do not like April 1st, just from an adult standpoint. I don't mean like elementary school or whatever, or have fun and do that. And again, you know me. I like to have fun. I like to hang out. I'm not overly serious. But what happened one year was we decided early in my career, that we would play an April Fool's joke as a show. And I hesitate to say we're a professional radio show, but it's like, so this is before the internet, before all things like that, and people could call, all this kind of stuff. But anyway, the long story short was it was in Salt Lake City, and BYU had head coach that nobody liked, and his name was Roger Reed. Nobody liked Roger Reed. And even the BYU fans didn't like Roger Reed. So Rick Majerus, Jolly Rick Majerus, was coaching Utah, and we made up this thing that said Majerus was out, and Roger Reed, who not only did BYU fans hate, but Utah fans hated, and they were rivals, obviously. And we said, Roger Reed's coming to Utah. It's crazy. And Rick Majerus is out. And people were outraged. And they forgot it was April Fool's Day. And we were doing a midday show. So it was like, come on, man. I get it if you get somebody at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning. They haven't had their coffee. They haven't situated themselves yet. They haven't got into the office and they forget what day it is. But by the middle of the day, you're like, okay, I know what day it is. My antennas are up. I'm alert. I get it. So anyway, everybody was freaking out. And we had a fake reporter on. And the thing is we made it so obvious. The guy's name, we made up the name and we said his name was John Pullleg. Like we're pulling your leg, right? Duh. So his name was John Pullleg from some made up Arizona, whatever. And yeah, he's a Pac-12 insider or whatever. And, this is going to happen. And so people freaked out. So what happened was a guy got fired and I knew the guy. It was a kid, actually. It was a young kid who had worked himself into the business. He was a producer of a show. And he told this rival show of ours, sports station of ours, a sports show of ours, that this was the truth and all this kind of stuff. And so they run with it as serious. And somebody comes into our studio and goes, hey man, this guy's name was Chris Tunis, was the guy that was doing the show. And he said, hey, Chris is running with this opposite you guys. And we thought it was funny at first. And then it got kind of serious. And then they fired the producer later because, it was dumb for the producer to run with it and not think of the day and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, they ran with it and the producer got fired. And I felt really bad because the producer used to work with us. And I don't ever know what happened. It was actually a woman and she got fired. And I felt really bad about it. And then from that point forward, I said, I'm just not doing that. I'm not going to do anything like that. We're kind of a professional organization people expect, even though, again, you like to have fun and all that kind of stuff and people should know better. And we were making it so obvious that it was a fake story, but people just let their emotions, because BYU and Utah hated each other so much, people just let their emotions and it kind of hit on a chord. And it was just a really, I don't know, kind of a perfect storm kind of a thing. And so this producer gets fired. Plus the guy who was doing the radio show opposite us was kind of a mentor. He was an older guy, was always very, very nice to me. And I just felt bad. I was just, we're competing against the guy. I understand that, but I don't want a producer to get fired, a young person. And I don't want, this mentor of mine. And I think I told you a story the other day, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, where I said I was standing there during a playoff series against the Jazz against the Kings. And a reporter who had known Karl Malone for a long time was getting this insight. It was actually on Chris Webber. And Malone's going off on him. And I turned my recorder back on, and this guy got really mad at me, who was the beat reporter for the Jazz, saying, you getting all this? I'm like, yeah, I mean, what do you want me to do? And then the beat reporter went to this guy, Chris Tunis, who was a veteran radio guy, and goes, hey, this is what Lund did. Would you have done this? And Chris backed me up on the whole thing. So I knew this guy. He was a mentor of mine. He had my back before, and we're screwing with his show, which was opposite our show, and his producer runs with it, and they start acting like it was a real story. And I'm just like, first of all, that is on you to a certain extent because it's the middle of the day. You should know better. Our reporter's name was John Pullleg. We were laughing through the whole thing. I mean, there was no communication like now where it's on social media, everybody could have said, you're full of it. You guys, come on, whatever. Well, there was none of that. And so they ran with it. They ran with it as a story, as like a true story. And it was just blowing up and going crazy because everybody hated this coach. Majerus was beloved by the youth. We're like, Majerus is out. This guy, Roger Reed, is in. And Reed had just been fired by BYU. Everyone hated the guy on both sides of the rivalry. And they were freaking out. And so I just thought it was so outrageous. There was no one who was going to believe it. And people did. And then the station opposite us went with it based on the producer hearing our show or whatever, or getting rumor of our show or whatever the case may be. She got fired. He had egg on his face. And I just felt really terrible. So from that point forward, I just went, you know what? I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to do anything like that. I don't want people getting fired. I don't want to, because I saw the guy, he was a reporter and he would go to games and everything like that. And I'd see him at games and I was like, oh boy, this guy hates me now. And he helped me out. So anyway, that's my backstory that at the time, it was funny. And I was like, oh my God. And people kept coming into our studio going, no, I'm listening to these guys. And we would listen to them during breaks and they were going with it. Like it's a news story and going crazy. And I'm just like, what in the hell? And that was when phone calls were huge. Like we just go phone call. and we were on like a 10-second delay. So if someone did call up and say, hey, this is a bogus story, you guys are stupid, we just dump them. And then that didn't get on the air. But they were getting callers too. And, they were debating back and forth whether it was real. But I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Believe me, they probably went with it for 30 minutes. But still, 30 minutes, it was just, they were acting like it was a real story. It was just like, oh, my God, these guys are getting fired. Ugh, I feel terrible. So anyway, maybe I shouldn't feel terrible because they were stupid for going with it. And we did make it obvious. I mean, when you have a reporter and his name is John Polleg, and we're like, it's John Polleg from the, Arizona Daily Herald or something. I mean, we made up a dumb newspaper and the whole thing. And he's like, yes, this is happening. And we're just like, what? How are these guys thinking that? Seriously? I hate getting egg on my face. I know, what an old term. Anyway, that's what happened. That's why I don't like it. That's, this is how I feel. It's like, I don't want people to be getting in trouble. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so there's that. By the way, I'm sorry to bring this up and go to random right away because we got to get to some of those Kyle cuts. But Kenneth says, I had leftover Chinese food with whiskey and water for breakfast of champions. I'm not so much concentrating on the whiskey right now, even though I'm a huge whiskey fan. Is there anything better cold the next day than Chinese food? We had Chinese food the other day, and in the morning it was a tangerine beef. It was like a kind of a like almost crunchy, like a tangerine beef. And we had orange chicken, and we had like some vegetables or something. And you throw that in with just a tiny bit of brown rice and heat that up a little bit. It's better the next day. And even cold, like I was sticking my fork in there before I even heated it up. And I was like, oh, pretty good. Like, salads don't work the next day. Fries don't work the next day. Like there's certain things. Best next day foods. Pizza's up there. And pizza for me, by the way, when I learned this, then I love pizza even that much more. Don't nuke your pizza the next day. All you got to do is put it in a small sauce or a small flat pan with a little bit of water in it and put a cover over it for just like a minute, and it steams it back up and hot, but not too piping hot. Like I don't want it too piping hot. Cold is good. In college, it was just straight cold. Didn't matter. Hungover, Saturday morning, straight cold pizza, doesn't matter. But medium, I like lukewarm pizza the next day so that the cheese is melting. So pizza's up there. Chinese food is tough to beat the next day, because like the flavors meld together even better. So anyway, if you would like to go on a tangent and start random today, best next day foods. Worst is salad. French fries are terrible the next day. Don't even bother with a burger, because the bun gets all soggy and all that kind of like. Sometimes you look at people when they do it to go, and you're like, I know you're not going to eat that. Like our kids in our house, my wife always brings home to go stuff for them, and I just look at her like, they're not eating leftovers. Like they're just not leftover people. I have no problem with leftovers, no problem whatsoever. But when you're steak is tough the next day because, if you want it, you have it perfectly cooked in a restaurant, right? Like medium rare, and you're loving it, and you take it home, and it's like, well, what do you do so that it doesn't get overcooked the next day? Same kind of thing. You can put it in like a steam thing for just to heat it up just a little bit, and it tastes really, really good. Yeah, orange chicken is a great call. Yeah, cold orange chicken the next day is absolutely great. That's what we had. We had like a tangerine beef that was more like a crispy thing. Had a coating on it. It was really, really good. And then and the orange chicken, it was outstanding. Like the next day, even cold, like I'm sticking my fork in it, eating it cold. And I'm like, we got to heat this up just a little bit. It is. It's so, so good. Anyway, if you would like to do that, that would be fine. That would be nice. Tri-tip. Look at somebody going, oh, there you go. Air fryer. Good call there, Khalil. Air fryer for fries the next day. That's a good call. That's true. I do have an air fryer, and I use it on like so much. It's unbelievable. But, I never thought of that. That's a great point, man. There's air fryer pizza. There you go. That's a good call right there. So, yeah, air fryer. Pizza hands down, says Vernon. Pizza. Chinese food's pretty hard to beat, man. I guess it's between Chinese food and pizza the next day for the reheat. The next day reheat. Somebody said, oh, cold pot stickers. No. What else, right? It's a really good thing the next day. You should try this for a breakfast item. If you ever had like potatoes, but they were like cheesy potatoes at a restaurant, almost like a cheesy mashed potato or a twice baked or something. And you put that on like a frying pan the next day, and you chop it up and you fry it up like hash browns. Really good. Really good. No, I am not chugging a beer on a Tuesday. I'm on with Damon. We rescheduled. So at 11 o'clock, I'm on with Damon. So I can't be chugging beers. I got to be on top of my game. And then I got a bunch of sales stuff I got to do. I'm a sales guy right after the show. So the show, it's like that I'm talking to people going, hey, advertise on the show. And then I'm hammered. I can't do that. Wednesday, tomorrow, you might be able to convince me, because I think I'm going up to the A's game tomorrow, A's and Cubs, to get a look at that stadium. And then on opening day, certainly Friday, home opening day, I think I could do that before. We rescheduled from last week, but I think we're looking really good. Yeah, microwave does ruin everything. Joy knows. Yeah, you don't like to nuke anything. Like the next day, if you nuke something they're eating the next day, then it's like, blah, not great. Not great stuff. Oh, leftover wings. That's a good call. I have done that. I have put the wings in the air fryer the next day, and that is great. I will say this. I do have a great, the full wing. I don't do, the little pieces. I go out and I buy the big ones, the full wing, and I make those every Super Bowl. Outstanding. You start, I could go down a long road on that one. But anyway, good morning. Nice to see you. Already went on a tangent. All right. Least favorite day. We've already done that. Let me recap John Lynch before I play some of this Kyle Shanahan for you. So John Lynch yesterday, and I played some of this for you, or talked about some of it with you when we talked about it. So John spoke during the show yesterday. Recap, loves Brock Purdy, is fine with Brandon Ayuk. I don't know if he's jumping up and down, but he's fine with Brandon Ayuk. He explained the situation as far as the financial reset yesterday. And then one of the things he said, and this is why I'm telling you, and I'll do the same thing when I play some Kyle Shanahan here, is that it's lying season 24/7, 365. And I tell you that all the time. But for John Lynch, because this caught some headlines today, if you look through some of the 49ers people that cover him, whether it's Matt Maiocco, Matt Barrows, all these people that do a great job covering him, Nick Wagner, David Lombardi, all those guys who were in Palm Beach, everybody made a note that John Lynch said yesterday, we're fine with our offensive line. We feel great. Look, they're picking at 11. They don't want to tell anybody what position group they're looking at. I mean, it's pretty obvious. The defensive line needs a ton of help. They need a linebacker. They might need a corner. They probably need a safety. They need depth at running back. They need probably depth at wide receiver, because Ayuk's coming back, but it's not going to be for maybe at least till midseason, ACL, MCL. So it's pretty obvious. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to know what the 49ers needs are. But their offensive line wasn't very good. Now, whether you look at Pro Football Focus and where they had them, which was in the 20s, but if you just use some logic, they like Colt McKivitz at right tackle. I'm sorry to tell you that, but they do. But they really like him inside at guard too. So he's going to be a starter along the offensive line somewhere. Dominic Pooney is obvious at right guard. He's going to be a starter somewhere. And then at left tackle, this might be the last year for Trent Williams. So you don't want to have a rookie out there next year. You want to be so desperate next year that you're trying to pay a guy at left tackle in free agency who, because he makes it to free agency, say it with me, we say it all the time, is not a perfect candidate. You don't get lucky all the time and go from Joe Staley to Trent Williams. It just doesn't happen that way normally. So they're going to have to address that in this draft. If there's a tackle sitting there, Membu or Campbell are the two big names, and somehow they slip, which I don't think they will, but if somehow they slip to 11, the Niners have to take them, because then what happens is they put that guy at right tackle, they put McKivitz at left guard, then you have a backup plan for Trent Williams long-term. That's the biggest value in the draft, and if you're picking at 11, which they don't want to do very often, that's where you can find those guys. It's really hard to find a franchise left tackle picking late in the first round. A lot of those guys are taken early. It can happen, don't get me wrong. Joe Staley was late in the first round. Trent Williams was a top 5 pick, or I think it was the 6th pick. So if you're sitting at 11, that's an elite position. You want to be able to address that if you can, but you're not going to reach for somebody. So that's kind of how I see that. So I think they would go that route just because there is a need. Trent Williams is 37 years old. Left guard, there's a need. I'm sorry, I don't buy Ben Barch and all these other guys. Those guys haven't played at all. And if they were decent, they would have. And they haven't. Nick Zakelj, Ben Barch, I don't buy any of it. So they need a left guard. And then as far as Jake Brendel, and Kyle addressed this as well, Jake Brendel gets overpowered. It's just, I don't care what they say about him. You're not going to rip a guy because he may be their starting center. He's a smart guy. He's a veteran guy, but he's just not very powerful. And you look at where this position is inside, and it's either quick guys, and this draft is certainly symbolic of it. There's a lot of quick penetrating types, Walter Nolan's, and then there's the Kenneth Grants, and there's probably 4 or 5 real monster nose tackles, and guys are getting bigger and quicker inside, and Jake Brendel just can't handle it. So what they really need is a little bit more size and strength in there and athletic ability. But the problem is that when you bring in a young guy, it's kind of like a little bit bringing in a quarterback because he's got to call the line changes, all these things. And you like to have a veteran center, not a rookie center in there. And the only guy that made any sense in this free agent class, as you said, is Drew Dahlman. And the former, his dad played here. He played at Stanford. We talked about him a ton. He went to Chicago for $3 and $42, and that's not really an outrageous contract. So, I'll play for you, Kyle Shanahan, and the fact that, look, this is just the way things are right now. It's what we had to do. But in a normal year, if they would have brought in Dahlman and they would have re-signed Dre Greenlaw, which we talked about ad nauseum yesterday, how they tried at the last minute but misread the market at the beginning, then this wouldn't have been such a bad offseason, but they didn't. So they can say whatever they want about Jake Brendel. Look at it from the other side. Why would they? They're not going to rip the guy. They're not going to say they're desperate for offensive linemen. They're not going to say they're desperate for defensive linemen. Although right now, if you look at the defensive line, like Drake Jackson would be a starting edge guy. There's no way. Drake Jackson stinks. Evan Anderson in his double helmet would be a starting defensive tackle. He's a rotational guy. So is Kevin Givens. So is Jordan Elliott. They just don't have enough in there, and they've got to do it, and they have nothing across from Nick Bosa. So they're desperate on the defensive line in this draft. And John Lynch already said that this is this is it. It's an NFL draft. We got to do this. So they got to nail a bunch of picks. But where they're desperate. But I don't care if they had nobody at the position. Like right now, they essentially have no one at edge opposite Nick Bosa. It's guys like Robert Beal, Drake Jackson, Sam Okawanu. Those are not starting caliber edge rushers opposite Nick Bosa. If you ask them point blank right now, hey, what do you think at edge? They'd use those names and say those guys are fine and they're fine with them starting. That's what they would say because they got to maintain leverage. And those players play for them, so they're not going to rip them. I saw yesterday where Mike Tomlin said he was okay with Mason What's-His-Face, who came back to the Steelers, it being their starting quarterback. And it's like, what are you talking about? Of course you're not. Over the offseason, the Rams said when they were negotiating with Matthew Stafford that they were okay with Jimmy Garoppolo being their starting quarterback. And I laugh. I'm like, nobody believes that. But you have to say that. You have to maintain that relationship with your player. You have to maintain leverage so that teams don't know really what you're thinking. Do they really think Jimmy Garoppolo's okay? Of course they don't think that. But what's the upside of saying that guy stinks? Hey, Kyle, what do you think of Jake Brendel? I think he stinks. We need a center bad. Hey, Kyle, what do you think of your offensive line? God, Trent Williams is going to retire, and then what the hell are we going to do? Brock Purdy's going to die. What do you think he's going to say that? All these people were putting all this stuff out. John Lynch says they're fine with their offensive line. I guess they're fine with their offensive line. It's like, have I taught you nothing? Have we learned nothing? Not that I'm very smart, but come on, man. It's lying season. Mason Rudolph. Thank you very much, Jake. The Steelers are okay with Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback. I wouldn't be okay with Mason Rudolph as my backup quarterback. What are they trying to do? They're trying to maintain leverage. They're not going to say that Mason Rudolph stinks. Hey, Mike Tomlin, what do you think of Mason Rudolph? I think he stinks. We're dying for a quarterback. I pay Aaron Rodgers anything. You can't say that. So we know this. It's just I'm here to remind you every once in a while that just because John Lynch says the offensive line's okay does not mean the offensive line is okay, because it's not. But they're not going to panic. Hey, Kyle Shanahan, what do you think of a linebacker next to Fred Warner? I'm all for it. Of course he's going to say nice things about his guys. Maybe he believes some of it, but like I said, I've been behind the scenes for almost 30 years in every one of these professional sports. What they say and what they believe, those are two different things, man, a lot of times. And what you logically think is exactly what they think. And nobody's lying. It's with the advent of all these analytics that happen in all the sports, they can say all they want about a certain player. It's all there. The numbers don't lie. Now, sometimes they do, and sometimes they get manipulated, and a lot of people like me will use numbers somehow to get a point across it. So they're not always 100% accurate. But here's what I know. I watch the damn game, and I'm very fond of that term. Just watch the damn game. And if you watch the damn game, you can see that Jake Brendel's on his ass half the time, and you can see that there's a ton of middle pressure, and you can see that when you have a barely 6'1" quarterback, that's a major problem. So will they address center? I don't know. I don't know if they have enough. I was on with Larry Krueger last night, and he was asking me about going to a running back earlier, going to a receiver earlier. They don't have that luxury. Right now, going with a running back early is like a third string guy, or that's a third string player on this team. Guarendo's going to be the backup, or a wide receiver. I get it that Ayuk's going to be out for probably for the first half of the season, but they signed Demarcus Robinson, whether you like him or not, and it's going to be Robinson, Pearsall, and JJ. That's what it's going to be. Those are the starting guys. Or people who talk about Tyler Warren. Hey, look, man, maybe Tyler Warren is going to be drafted, but God, this team has so many needs. In a normal year where you looked at the Niners, and Kyle's going to address this in just a second. If you looked at the Niners in a normal year, Kyle Shanahan was saying this morning, amidst his coffee, tired eyes, and slick back hair, that they didn't have many positions open, but this year they do. There's a lot of competition. In normal years, you could go, we're going to take Tyler Warren and we're going to have double tight ends, and this is going to be really cool. But the reality is that they don't have the luxury to do that. They need starting players for the first time in a long time. They need 2 starting defensive linemen. They need a starting edge. They need a starting offensive lineman, at least one. At left guard, they need more than that. They need a starting linebacker. They need probably another corner. I don't believe in Trey Brown. He's hurt way too much. So they need a third corner so that Demo can move inside on obvious passing downs. They probably need a veteran-free safety. I don't believe in Jair Brown. They probably need a kicker, as that's going to be I'll play that for you from Kyle Shanahan. So this is the first time in a long time, and Kyle Shanahan addressed it today very honestly, as Kyle Shanahan does. He's not a bullshitter. He's not a liar. He just said, look, there's a lot of competition on this team. In the past, they could sit at 11 and go, hey, if we think Tyler Warren's going to be the next Brock Bowers, then you know what? We're going to take this guy, and we're going to have double tight ends, and good luck going against us. You know, the guy's great, but they don't have the luxury this year to do that. When you have no starting defensive lineman, when you have Nick Bosa and 3, whoever the hell that is, you have to address that. And whether you want to say we take best available player because Warren might be that guy at 11, can't afford to do that this year. It's too bad. So anyway, you can disagree. Of course you can. Good to see you skaters on baseball. Let's talk Giants. I will get to it as you see the board right there. I'm just going to play some Kyle for you. Then we'll get to the Giants recap, and Jordan Hicks was absolutely great, I have to admit. So we'll get into that in just a moment as well. Plus, we got to get into the Dubs and the Grizz and all those other things. And it is April Fool's, so be careful. Be careful. Yeah, the diet, like I said, I went off on a big tangent because just because you brought that up, Fossey, I'll just address this, is that this is what the insiders do. It's coming up on the draft. And so when the Rams ask a Diana Rossini, hey, you know, the draft is coming up, free agency's coming up. This is before free agency. If you want some information from us, get it out there that we're fine with Jimmy Garoppolo being our starting quarterback. And, you know, Matthew Stafford's camp started laughing, I'm sure, hysterically, like, sure they are. Right. You know, they don't believe it. We don't believe it. But they've got to try to do those kind of things. And that's just kind of how the game has worked. So anyway. All right, let's get to all of this. Let me start here with Kyle. Let me start with this. Let me start with Brock Purdy, because that's where you start when you're talking about the 49ers. And this is Jed York, and this is courtesy of our good friend Tracy Sandler from Fangirl Sports Network, who is one of the people that is covering the 49ers in all places, and she's great. Now, what this will do, well, let me play this for you, and then I'll explain. So here's Jed York this morning from the NFL meetings in Palm Beach, giving lots of love to Brock Purdy.
Top 10 quarterback?
I think he is. I think he's great. Mm-hmm. And especially when you combine him with Kyle, and you combine him with what we have, he's a heck of a quarterback, and you want him to be here for a long, long time.
Okay, let me explain something from a reporter standpoint, and you probably didn't know this, but I'm just gonna reiterate the point. When you're in a negotiation like the 49ers are right now, they're not waiting; they're in an active negotiation right now with Brock Purdy. You don't say those kind of nice things unless something is getting close. You don't, hey, he's a top 10 quarterback, because then what happens is that agent texts John Lynch right afterwards and says, we're going back and forth on this whole thing, and your owner who's going to approve this thing, who's going to rubber stamp this thing, who's going to sign these checks, these giant checks, he just said my guy's top 10. And look, we've gone over this a ton of times. They don't have any leverage. There's not enough quarterbacks to go around. This is going to end in Brock's favor. That's just the way it is. It's the most difficult position in all of professional sports to find is the quarterback. So maybe this matters, maybe it doesn't. But the reason why I know this is because Jed's a businessman, and he's not stupid, and he's been doing this a long time. If you combine what John Lynch said about Brock Purdy yesterday, the contract negotiations, which was he feels good about it, He feels like they're getting close. He feels like they're going to get something done potentially before OTAs. I know John Lynch well enough, and so do you, that he's not one to say things are going in a really good direction if they're not. He just doesn't do that. When he was asked about Brandon Ayuk at the combine, he just avoided the question because he didn't want to lie. That's just what he did. So we know John, and he's been here long enough to know when he says, what he says, how he says it. It's really easy to read. He's just one of those guys. He's really easy to read. And so when John Lynch is positive and says he thinks things will get done in a certain fashion, then I believe that. And that's what I said yesterday, is that when I read the things about John Lynch and how he felt like they were going to get this thing done quickly and before OTAs, I think part of that is Brock telling his agent, I want to get this thing done, but he's still going to get his money because he's got the leverage in his corner. But John Lynch wouldn't have said that if things weren't going well. That's just how it is. And then to hear Jed York then come back this morning and say he's a top 10 quarterback when he doesn't have to say that, then he's giving more leverage to the camp, but he knows they're dotting I's and crossing T's, and that's why he can say it. So I really expect something to get done before OTAs. I expect something to get done shortly thereafter the draft, maybe early in May, late in April, something like that. I think in the next month they're going to get something done because I know John Lynch and the way he talks, and I know that Jed York is smart and has become savvy through the years, and he's not going to say those kind of things if they're far away, if they're not seeing eye to eye on this negotiation. So for all the people who are saying that, this wasn't going to get done or this is contentious, guys like Mike Florio and so forth who have no insight into what the 49ers are doing, they don't need me to defend them. I'm saying that, and believe me, if John Lynch had been a different way, if Jed York had been a different way, I would tell you that. But these are all positive signs that this thing is going in a really good direction. And this thing is important. It's important it gets done. It's going to get done. It's the timing of how it gets done. This is not Trent Williams. This is not Brandon Ayuk. This is not George Kittle. This is not Nick Bosa. This is none of those things. This is your leader coming off an atrocious season, not him, but the team. It wasn't great, but coming off the season of 6-11, you have to have your leader. He's got to be throwing with guys. He's got to be at OTAs. He's got to be leading the way. He's got to be all those things. That's what your quarterback is. He's more than a quarterback. He's a CEO of your team. He's the leader of everything, and he sets the tone for everything. And in the offseason, when you get on the same page with your receivers, that's when it happens. And I say this all the time. When a 300-pounder in November is in your face wanting to rip it off, and you've got 2.2 seconds to decide amongst 3 or 4 routes of, okay, I see the inside leverage on the corner. That ball's got to go outside. That receiver's got to read the same thing. Well, how does that happen? It happens a lot of times in the offseason where you say, hey, when I do that route, you can stop it right in the middle. There's nobody out there. It's you and the receivers. Hey, man, when I'm doing that, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm looking. You communicate and you do that. What do you think they do that in the offseason? Look, it happens in camp. I understand that. It happens all the time. But the more work you can do with somebody, the better. And I know that I was talking to Larry Krueger, and I was on his show the other day, and Brock Purdy said it takes about 3 weeks. It takes about 3 years. I'm saying that it, like in a telepathic nature, to not even have to think, I know where this guy's going to be. And when Brock Purdy, who's an anticipatory thrower, and more than maybe anybody else in the league because of his limited size and physical abilities, and I'm not saying he has a wispy arm because he doesn't, but he anticipates throws more than probably any other good quarterback in the league, you better be where you're supposed to be. That's why Deebo Samuel's not on this team. That's why I'm glad Brandon Ayuk is back on this team, because Brandon Ayuk's a good wide receiver. I think that one thing, if I want to reiterate something, and then I'll get to the Kyle stuff, I think this all got lost, is that it's a good thing that Brandon Ayuk is back. I don't pay the bills for Brandon Ayuk. I don't have to rubber stamp the check. Just sitting there from a fan and a media standpoint, and this got lost because there's a disconnect between Brandon Ayuk and the contract is brought up so much. And you and I loathe this stuff. I don't want to talk about contracts all the time and money and blah, 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 blah. I want to talk about the game itself. And from a pure game standpoint, which is what you care about and what I care about, I don't care what these guys do off the field, all these kind of things. And we talk about it, but the main thrust should be what they do on the field. And on the field, when he gets healthy, the 49ers are better with Brandon Ayuk. He's their best wide receiver when healthy. And one of the reasons they drafted him is because he's a good route runner and he can get open against man. And when Brock Purdy's going to make a throw, he knows that Brandon Ayuk is where he's supposed to be. And Ricky Pearsall, the reason they drafted him is because in college, he was where he was supposed to be. And Juwan Jennings, you can throw it up because he's so physical and he can make plays. So that's different. That's how he gets open against man. It's not speed. It's not really route running. It's just, I'm going to out physical you for the football. That's why these receivers fit and Deebo Samuel didn't, because he wasn't in the right place enough of the time. It's why Brandon Ayuk, to be honest with you, was in the doghouse early in his career, because he wasn't a precise route runner. This route is 7 yards and in. That's where you're supposed to be. And Ayuk would be at 9 or 5, and it was driving the coaches crazy. So he's become an intricate, very good route runner. And when he's healthy, he's their best receiver. And I think that's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle here of the doesn't run to write the check, and maybe he's going to get traded, maybe should get traded. They wouldn't have been a better team if they had traded him. Now, in the offseason, they could trade him, but we're not starting that whole conversation now. He's on a 3-year contract. It's not 4, it's 3. So he's got 1 year after this one where he's fully healthy. But if they don't like him this year and they're pissed off about it, then the number that they have to eat goes from 18 to 9. That's more palatable. He's healthy all of a sudden. Now teams could look at him. So, maybe it's a 1-year trial for him. I don't care, and I don't know, because I don't want to start that conversation again. But here's what I do know. They're better with him, and that's not being talked about very much. Like, hey, he's back. Ooh, okay. He's not he's not 38 years old. He's not at the end here. It's good that they brought Brandon Ayuk back. So, we're kicking the Niners while they're down, and I get it. Brock Purdy's getting signed. Brandon Ayuk's going to be back at some point. George Kittle is going to get extended. Like, all these other things that are going on, I get it, and they got a lot of work to do, especially defensively. But it's starting to go, okay, now we're seeing this whole thing. Let's see. Do you care what Ja does off the court? Yeah, I mean, I don't love the guns and all the weird stuff, but like I said, unless it has to be talked about, your life is your life. I don't try to pry into this stuff. Now, if it's funny, if it's interesting, if it's law breaking, yeah, I have a responsibility for that. But like I said, I've always had a philosophy that I try to keep it between the lines with these guys. It's more and more difficult to do because of social media, and they do it to themselves a lot of times. I wouldn't, to be honest with you, if I was a professional athlete, which is the biggest reach of all reaches, I'd be like Derek Jeter was. Like, I don't know how Derek Jeter, in the biggest, shiniest, hottest spotlight in all of sports, New York City, was able to do what he was able to do for as long as he was, and stay out of the spotlight and stay off the back pages and all those kind of things. It was just an amazing job. And when he started, obviously it wasn't the social media hotspot that it is today, and everybody's got a phone, and so everybody's a reporter. So I'm sure it's near impossible to do now, but I wouldn't give people fuel. And so many times these guys give fuel to everybody, and it's constant. I wouldn't be that way. I think Steph Curry does as good of a job as you can in staying out of that. Draymond Green likes it because it's going to be his post-career, but I would just be a guy that was like, I'm not giving you any fuel. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. I'm not going to advertise where I am. I'm not going to take a picture of my food. I'm not going to tell you what restaurant I'm at. Like, and that's not what I would want to do. Look, I have to talk to you guys because of my profession. So if I'm a football, baseball, basketball, hockey player, whatever, I have to talk to you at the arena. You don't have to know anything about my life, but so many different guys think that's part of it, because they're trying to be a brand and they're trying to make a ton of money afterwards, when the reality of it is, for me, I'd be like these movie stars that make a few movies and then all of a sudden you never see them again. Like Cameron Diaz is like, I got millions. Why the hell would I keep making movies? Like, I got $50 million in the bank. Later, I'm going to an island. That was another tangent. All right, let's get to some Kyle Shanahan stuff, shall we? Here's Kyle, and this was the biggest question that everybody wanted to know. How does he feel about the mass exodus of the offseason for the 49ers?
Much fun. I'm going through it. A lot of guys you care about, a lot of good players to see go, but it's part of this business. It happens to everyone at some time, and that's just where we're at right now.
By the way, Kyle, very stylish. I like the camel, I guess I would say. It's got the slick back hair, looking good. I'm not sure if we'll see in one of these videos. He is addicted to Starbucks. And I don't think, you got to be a morning person. I was going to say he's got those tired eyes in the morning and he's not a morning person, but he's got to be a morning person. I mean, he's there 24/7, 365. So here's his thoughts on Brock. And it kind of goes into a conversation of some competition. But here is this. I think Nick Wagner asked the question about this tie-in. And it's not so much Brock's performance, it's the tie-in between paying Brock a bunch of money and having to get all these salaries in check and losing players. Here's what Kyle said about that.
There's going to come a reckoning at some point. We're going to have to clear out space for that too.
No, I think that's definitely the deal. And that was one of our reasons why, we traded up to go get a rookie quarterback 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was. We knew we had a roster who we thought we could compete with for a while, and we thought we were going to be at the back of the first round for a few years with those draft picks. So we thought in order to maintain that roster, if we could get a rookie quarterback, we'd be able to pull that off. And we obviously did that. We traded up. We got very fortunate in being able to pull off that plan with Brock. But that's kind of allowed us to keep this team for a while. And when you look at like teams who, and I believe we're in the top 5 spending the last 5 years. But if you look at the other 9 teams in the top 10, all of them have paid a quarterback. So that shows us whether we had paid a quarterback or not, we still were up there too much. This is why we've been able to pay all our own guys and really retain most of our own people. And adding the quarterback part makes it that much harder, but it was something we're going to have to do anyway.
Given that, how certain do you have to be that the quarterback is the guy that you want for such a long time?
Oh, you need to be certain on that. Yeah, I mean, you pay a quarterback, and that's not if you're certain about that. It's not going to be very fun after that.
You've had some prolonged negotiations and holdouts the last couple of years. Are you prepared for a potential holdout at the quarterback position?
I hope not. And, I know Brock doesn't want to do that. We don't want to do that. I mean, no one wants to do that. But, these are negotiations that go on between agents and our organization. And it's over a lot of money and stuff. Those aren't just things that you just knock out right away. But I believe that we will. I hope that we do. And hopefully it won't come in any football season.
Okay, there's a lot of things to get to here. Rockaneur, I think, hits it right on the head here. There's a couple of thoughts. Dom says, leaning on his Al Pacino persona, which I think is pretty good. Rockin says, auditioning for Yellowstone. I would say that, yeah. Todd says he forgot the Just for Men. Yeah, he is. He's a little gray there. He's aging like the president. I told you, Tolbert and I did the first interview of him ever after his first press conference, and he had jet black hair. He looked like he was about 18 years old. He had this nice pressed suit. He had no growth whatsoever. I mean, the guy looked incredibly young. Sleeping on a cot 9 months out of a year in your office will age you, and clearly it has. But look, that's a good looking man right there. Very nice. He had the beard trimmed very much. We'll play one thing in a minute, but appearances aside, because appearances are not supposed to be show fodder, but I break that rule constantly, so I can't say that I'm angry with you for breaking it, because I thought all those were fine observations on your part of the way that Kyle looked. But let's just talk about some of the content. First and foremost, as I've said, John Lynch hinted towards it. Jed York said he was a top 10 quarterback. The deal's dotting I's and crossing T's point. I'm telling you, they're at the dotting I's, crossing T's point. And the reason I know that is not only what they said, but let's just think about the logic of this whole thing. Now, Josh Allen signed a team-friendly deal, quote unquote, in the offseason, so that's a bit of an outlier. Patrick Mahomes has signed a team-friendly deal, even though it's $450 million, which is a bit of an outlier. So you're going to compare apples to apples. And the two easiest ones, and I'm not saying this is an easy contract because there's details to it and how much you pay in the first 2 years and all these different things. But I cannot stress enough to people that the AAV, the average annual value, is an ego number. So it's for the agent to say, I got Brock $60 million, or I got Brandon Ayuk $30 million, or I got Nick Bosa $34 million, which was the highest paid defensive player at the time number. Those numbers don't matter in football. If you sign a contract in baseball, you will get every single dime. If you sign a contract in the NBA, you will get every single dime. Those are all real numbers, and you get 100%, and they are all guaranteed in those sports. Because of the injury factor in the NFL, they don't want to guarantee all the money. Now, the Browns did with Deshaun Watson. They were that desperate. It hasn't worked out well. It's gone higher and higher and higher. But here's the thing. Amongst the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league, about 50% of the money is guaranteed. 50%. So you're going to see a number for Brock Purdy that's going to be near $300 million, if it's not $300 million. That's not the number. And $60 million or over, which is what Dak is, and I'm sure what they want to get above for ego purposes. So then the agent can go to other prospective clients that are in college and say, I got Brock Purdy $60 million. You want to sign with me? That's why they do it. They do it because ego of Brock Purdy, and he doesn't seem to be that kind of a guy. So Brock can say, I'm the highest paid. Those are the things. But in the NFL, it doesn't matter. So what I'm pointing out to you is the number, it's going to be 5 years. I did a piece on this at johnlundunleashed.com, and you can check it out. The number is going to be 5 years because that's the number of contracts. They elongate the money out of that, and that's the signing bonus. Well, the bigger signing bonuses out there right now, obviously Deshaun Watson got all his money, and Josh Allen got a big signing bonus this offseason, and Joe Burrow's got a ton of money. But the number to look at is Trevor Lawrence, who got $55 million a year, but he also got $142 million guaranteed, which is the big number. Brock will top that. I bet Brock gets a contract in the $295 range. You go, oh my God, you can't pay Brock that. Oh. That's not the number that matters. The number that matters is the guarantee, which is going to be about $150 million or more, because Trevor Lawrence got 142, and he can't really argue he's better than Josh Allen or better than Joe Burrow. And really, as I tell you all the time, you don't have to be the greatest, you have to be the latest. But I still don't think he's going to top those numbers. But what he can do is he can top the guaranteed money of Trevor Lawrence. They can get it under $300 million, so the Niners can say we didn't give him $300 million or 60. But if they're hell bent on it, then it's going to be above 60. But I just don't think this is where Brock comes in, and it's not a hometown discount. It's the fact that Brock Purdy's got a bad taste in his mouth from 6-11. And I think that Brock Purdy's saying to his agent, look, if we can get close to that number, that's great. I understand the responsibility, and he does have one, to the players union and the players that came before him to get as much money as he can. That's real. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's real. And he has a responsibility to his agent, who says, look, I got to get you the most money that I possibly can, because it makes me look bad if I don't. So there's all these things that shouldn't be a factor or are a factor, but their parameters, my point is, the parameters are already set, right? You're not getting Mahomes money or Allen money or Burrow money, but then right there, you're going to get the next amount. You're better than Jordan Love. You're better than Trevor Lawrence. You're more accomplished. And if you don't believe that, I understand, but he's won more games. He's had more team success. He's had more statistical success. Wins and losses, all those kind of things. He's higher on the poll than those guys I just mentioned. So he's going to be right there. That's why I'm saying that John Lynch is seeing the positive signs and talking about it. Jed York is coming out and saying he's a top 10 quarterback. You don't say those things in a negotiation and have leverage against yourself if you're not dotting I's and crossing T's. And that's what I believe they're doing. Now, that can be a long process. I'm not saying it's today or tomorrow. But what I am saying is, having done this a long time, as a reporter and having instincts, I understand that they're getting close. John Lynch doesn't say those things unless they are. And Jed York doesn't say the things he said this morning unless they are. Now, let me go to another point of what Kyle said there. He was asked by Nick Wagner as a follow-up question, do you have to be sure at this position, the quarterback position, that you don't screw it up, that you give the wrong guy the money, that you extend a guy, he screws up your salary cap, which Kyle just basically said, the reason why we're in this predicament is because we got to pay Brock Purdy all this money. He's going from $1 million a year to, even if we slow play this thing out, it's 60 or close to it, AAV, average annual value. That's still the biggest raise in the history of the NFL. So even if the first year's 20 or 25 million on the salary cap, that's still a massive raise for the quarterback, and you've got to make adjustments to that. And that's why part of the reason why they're having the offseason they're having. And Kyle just admitted that. So then Nick Wagner asked him, do you got to believe that he's the guy? And Kyle obviously said yes. But from the end of the season, even if you felt like Brock didn't have a great season, there's excuses, explanations. They had a lot of injuries, everything else. He didn't have his great year. The Niners believe he's the first 2-year quarterback and not the third-year quarterback. And there's been no hesitation the whole time. And I don't know why everybody keeps asking or questioning if Brock's the guy, or if more so because this is not a democracy, what the organization believes. Kyle said at the end of the year, basically, he was like, he's like a son to me. I mean, he would have licked him head to toe. That's kind of what the end of the year press conference seemed like to me. And then at every turn, when they talk about Brock, they love him. They love the player. They love what he brings to the table. They loved how hard he's worked. He's only 25 years old. He hasn't played his best football yet. I don't think anybody gives him credit for that. He has not played his best football yet. He's going to get better. And when they get healthy, and if they improve their offensive line, and I believe that they will, then he's able to see, and he's not getting the middle pressure, then Brock Purdy's going to make plays. He's proven that his first 2 years. And when the talent went away, and when he tried to do too much, then he wasn't as effective. He's got to have the players around him. The scheme is really good. He fits it really well. That's just what it is. So for people to continue to question whether the organization believes he's the guy or not, at every turn, it's emphatic that they believe he's the guy, and they're going to give him the money. Now, the other side of that, too, is you can get out of these deals, though. And this is why the 49 Parag Marathi is really good at this. And I would structure it the same way. Look, Brock, we'll give you the $150 million, whatever the guarantee. It's going to be around $150 million, maybe more. We're going to give you this money, but at some, we're going to write this so that we can get out of it at some point if you're not the guy. You're not tied to quarterbacks like you used to be. Like I said, Sam Darnold's 3-year 110 and Seattle's 1-35. At some point, the worst contract that's been signed in the last 10 years, 20 years, maybe ever, is Deshaun Watson. Now, he's got $100 million dead cap this year. Even if Cleveland takes Shedeur Sanders at number 2, which I'm not convinced they will, even if they take him at number 2, they've got to hang on to Deshaun Watson probably for 2 more years. But remember, teams are eating more money than they ever have. And just look at the Niners. They're going to eat about $100 million in dead cap space, which means players no longer on their team. But the Broncos made the playoffs last season, and they ate $50 million of Russell Wilson's money. The Jets this year are going to eat $50 million of Aaron Rodgers' dead cap space to make him go away. How can they do that? Because the cap keeps going up and up and up. Now, in order to do those kind of things, you've got to draft your ass off and have a bunch of cheap guys on your roster. And that's where it goes back to, and I can't believe Kyle addressed this. He addressed Trey Lance without saying Trey Lance. He said that's why we went up in the draft and took a guy third, because we felt like that gives us a 4 or 5 year window. He didn't say this part of it, but what that does is by making the move up for Trey Lance, and it's part of the reason they did it, because they were paying Jimmy. And at the time, he was one of the higher paid quarterbacks in the league. They thought to themselves, we have a mid-level quarterback here who's making that kind of money, and it keeps going up and up and up. It's kind of like why Washington didn't want to pay Kirk Cousins. They just didn't think he was an upper echelon quarterback, and they kept paying him year to year to year because they didn't want to go long-term on the guy who they didn't think was an upper echelon quarterback. And so the Niners decided as part of this process is Jimmy's just not good enough for the money that we're paying him. I mean, that's what it is. We're not paying Jimmy up and up and up. So we're going to reset at the position so that then that gives us conceivably, if this guy's a good quarterback, this gives us at least a 4-year window with the cheap quarterback. And you heard Kyle Shanahan say we had a cheap quarterback, spent a bunch of money, and the other 9 teams of the top 10 that spent last year had already paid their quarterback. So it gives you a massive advantage to have an underpaid quarterback. So then you can pay everybody else on your team and have this great team that the Niners did. Problem was they came up short for the Super Bowl. Now, they didn't get Trey Lance with it. They got Brock Purdy with it. And that's what he was saying is that when you have a cheap quarterback, that's why they went up and got him. It didn't work out. They get lucky with Brock Purdy, but it doesn't mean you're out of the woods because you didn't have first-round picks in 22 and 23. And those guys right now would be cheap labor and good players on your team. And that's why they're in such a desperate situation in the draft, because you lost 2 first-round picks that should be starters and upper echelon and quality players on your football team, and they should still be on rookie contracts. So they wouldn't be making much money. And that's what's happening in Philadelphia. That's what's happening in Detroit. That's what's happening in Green Bay. They've got a bunch of young players who aren't making money. And despite the fact that they're paying Jalen Hurts in Philly and Jared Goff in Detroit and Jordan Love in Green Bay, they've got enough cheap players sprinkled throughout the roster because of the way that they've drafted that they're still okay. And what the Niners are saying is, and why they've gone into this whole thing, and I'm in a roundabout way, I'm explaining to you why they had the offseason that they had. The Niners now have an expensive quarterback like those teams, but they don't have cheap players sprinkled in because all their players are getting paid. So George Kittle paid, Warner paid, Trent Williams paid, Diamano Lenore now paid. All these guys are paid. Where's my cheap labor? Though that was supposed to be my first-round picks in 22 and 23. Those are supposed to be my cheap labor, and they're gone because Trey Lance didn't work out. That's a problem. Now their cheap labor is Dom Pooney. Dom Pooney's pretty cheap. That's about it. And now they've got to nail this draft, and they had to let a bunch of guys go. Why? Because they don't have those players to offset everything. They are incredibly top-heavy now when they give Brock Purdy that contract because everybody else is paid too, and you can't pay everybody. So now you need cheap labor. Well, that's what this draft is, getting 11 players, 12 players in, and hopefully, and this is really hard to do, You hit on 7 or 8 of them, and the Niners haven't done that since the 86 draft, which is their best draft of all time. They haven't done that. So that's why they are where they are. Everybody's scratching their head going, I can't figure it out. It's because Brock's getting paid, but it's not just Brock getting paid. McCaffrey's paid. Ayuk is paid. Kittle is paid. Trent Williams is paid. Nick Bosa is paid. Fred Warner is paid. Diamador Lenore is paid. They don't have enough guys from previous draft classes making an impact for cheap. And if you look at the other rosters of the teams in the NFC who you care about, who are competing against the 49ers, they've got guys that even out their roster who aren't getting paid yet. Just look at Philly. Jalen Carter's not paid. Jordan Davis isn't paid. Those 2 DBs that they just took in the draft last year, Mitchell and Cooper, they're not paid yet. Nakobe Dean, their linebacker, he's not paid yet. Barkley's paid, but for a running back, that's not a huge amount of money. So they've got guys. They got a couple of guys along the offensive line who haven't been paid yet. So they're sprinkling guys in, even though they've paid their quarterback and they've paid A.J. Brown and they paid Devontae Smith and they've paid a fair amount of players, but they're going to run into that same thing. And Detroit's going to run into that same thing when Jahmyr Gibbs is up and a number of those defenders are up. Hayden Hutchinson hasn't gotten his big extension yet. Then they're going to hit the same situation the Niners are. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to hit these windows where, my quarterback's not paid or my best defensive player is not paid, or you've got to take advantage of that 2, 3, 4 year window where you have a bunch of young players, because once you hit that and everybody starts getting paid and you have an expensive quarterback, everybody has to go through this process. The Niners process is now, and everyone's losing their mind and they're going, why are we going through this? A lot of it is Brock, but a lot of it is you don't have enough young players who are impacting the game, who are cheap because they haven't hit their second contracts yet. They don't have enough of those guys. And so that's what happened is they let a bunch of these guys go. They trimmed the fat. There was a lot of quantity and name value, not a lot of quality, to be honest, but they didn't hit the draft enough. And so here they are. I hope that made sense. All right, this part is the one that is most interesting to me as far as what Kyle Shanahan said this morning. And again, courtesy of David Lombardi, who does a tremendous job covering the 49ers. This is from Florida this morning. This is about competition. So he starts talking about the offensive line a little bit here, and then he goes into your friend and mine, Jake Moody. So here's Kyle saying how different camp will be this year, because normally they don't have so many starting positions available, but this year is going to be different.
Competition there, but we'll see how all that plans out. That going into this season, going into OTAs, going into training camp, I do feel there will be as much competition on our team for starting spots as there has been in a while, especially on defense. But we kind of want to create that everywhere. We haven't had that for a while. We've gone into drafts these last few years, not as much last year, but especially the 2 years prior, to where you look at our board and it's like, man, we don't really have to find a starter anywhere. You got to find depth, because quickly they're a starter with an injury. I remember going into 3 years ago and felt the only starting position we could find was a kicker, because we were so solidified. And it really isn't that way this year. So we're going to go into this draft, hopefully add 11 people. We'll see how that plans out, add them into our OTAs, and hopefully we'll have some really good competition come training camp.
So left guard would be Zakel, Barch, and maybe Hennessy, all kind of looking in at that spot.
Yep.
And what about kicker? I mean, will you bring in a veteran kicker to compete with Moody?
Yeah, we're going to bring someone else in. I know we were going to go out and sign a guy right away in free agency, but I know Brant and Colt are looking into some kickers throughout all these kicking camps, throughout the colleges and stuff. But we'd more likely like to add in a veteran and hopefully get him in here after draft time.
How would that competition happen? Would it be? I mean, Jake's a pretty good practice kicker, but how do you create that pressure that maybe he hasn't done the best?
I mean, you have him compete every day in practice. You get the preseason games, and that's about all you can do. But I think when you bring in a guy and you make it serious competition, which it will be, and he knows he's got to beat a veteran kicker out, as long as we bring in a guy who's capable of taking that job and Jake respects him, and that's what puts pressure on him, because you got to respect the guy you're going against, and he does have to beat him out in practice. Yeah, the games will happen once the season starts, but the preseason will be there, and when your job's on the line doing something, going against someone who's talented, you do feel that pressure, and I do believe if you can overcome that and beat out a
All All right, so you get the general idea there. He talks about Jake Moody and bringing in a veteran. I did not look at veteran kickers because I just won't. If he said, "Hey, we're going to bring in a veteran quarterback to compete with Brock Purdy," then I would look up veteran quarterbacks. But this whole kicking thing from the minute he was drafted, you know that. I was on KNBR doing the draft coverage, and I screamed out loud, "No!" Even though I walked into the draft show that day at 49ers HQ right next to the draft room, and Papa grabbed me right away and goes, "They're drafting a kicker. So get yourself ready for it." I go, "No, I will not believe that. I will not believe it." And he goes, "They are drafting a kicker." And I went, "No, I will not hear that." And when they did, I was, like I said, and then Kyle walked into the draft room with us and said, "I wanted a running back." First thing he said, because apparently he had heard the way that I reacted to the kicker, and goes, "I wanted a running back. I wanted a running back." And I laughed. He was hilarious. So look, it is what it is, but they need a veteran. And the reason why I don't like a rookie is because, and Robbie Gould told us this about a couple of weeks into camp, he said it takes a minute for these kickers to kind of play their way around the league. And I can tell them certain things, but they've got to know the win patterns and all these kind of things. And maybe they lose confidence. And then by the time they get to a second team, then they kind of understand the league, and that's what it is. And it's just such a mental game that I hated it. So, look, Jake has all the physical skills necessary. It's not physical with him. He can kick the hell out of the ball. The guy kicked 2 50-plus yard field goals in the Super Bowl. And so it's funny to hear Mayoko, and he's right. Mayoko said, well, what about, he kicks fine in practice, but then the pressure. He's kicked some great pressure kicks. But here's where Kyle, and I know this for a fact, this is where it drives Kyle crazy. And to be honest, I think they're going to have a veteran kicker this year, not Jake Moody. He loved the fact that even though Robbie Gould didn't have the long leg, and I tell you this all the time, the players in the bank versus the what ifs. So if you look at my Giants preview at johnlundunleashed.com, season preview, which still holds after a few games, I said there's too many ifs on the Giants. There's too few. Put them in the bank. Logan Webb in the bank. Matt Chapman in the bank. Patrick Bailey defensively in the bank. Willie Adames in the bank. And then there's a bunch of question marks. The Jake Moody is not in the bank. He's a question mark. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm on the sidelines and I'm down 3 or whatever, and it's a 58-yarder, 55-yarder, a lot of kickers in the league can do that. Yeah, okay, you had to be at the 35 to give Robbie Gould a chance. But he knew that. So Kyle Shanahan's play calling reflected the fact that he could get within range Robbie Gould of 53 and in, and he was damn confident that Robbie Gould was going to make the kick. But with Jake Moody, he's trying to game plan here, and he's going, am I getting good Moody today? Am I getting bad Moody? What the hell is he going to do? Is he going to shank a 44-yarder? Is he going to make a 58-yarder? Like, that's what is going through the guy's head. And you can't have that. I need in the bank. I don't need what if. What if Moody makes it? What if Moody misses? Robbie Gould, especially in the playoffs where he never missed a kick as a 49er, inside 53, he's making the kick. I can bank that. So I can think that way when I'm calling plays. Now he's thinking about whether Jake Moody's is in the right headspace today. And it's like, damn, what am I going to do here? I don't know. Mr. Hand. So that's a major problem. So to me, I don't know who it's going to come down to. I mean, you have a special teams coach, and it's not just Kyle Shanahan, but Kyle Shanahan's thinking to himself, can I get a veteran kicker? Like Nick Folk is 40-plus years old. But I think last year in Buffalo, which is one of the hardest places to kick, he missed 2 kicks. That's it, man. So he doesn't have the range at this point of his career of a Jake Moody, but I know this, that when they're inside, and I'll call him the same thing, if they're inside 53, Kyle's thinking to himself, this guy's going to make it. It's money. By the way, Moody Blues, I'd never thought of that. I have the Moody Blues every time my God. So I just, he's just hit and miss. Like he'll hit like I said, in the Super Bowl, he nails 2 50-plus yarders, and it was like, wow, especially the one in overtime. It's like, he knew they were going to lose when he kicked it because Mahomes was going to take him down the field. But it's like, wow, he kicks a 50-plus yarder to give him the lead, and you're thinking, this guy can kick. It's the friggin' Super Bowl. But then, it's a normal game, and he doinks a 44-yarder, and you're like, dude, I can't have that. I can't not know. I'm Kyle Shanahan, and I'm trying to keep this game and understand, trying to sit here and say, okay, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I'm trying to run this game, and I can't run the game if I think this stinking kicker is going to miss a 36-yard field goal. I can't have it, especially as good as kickers are nowadays. So I think that Kyle Shanahan would rather have a veteran, an older guy who doesn't have quite the range, but go back to his Robbie Gold days where he thinks, well, this guy probably 90% or more, 95, 99, is going to hit this kick. Where Jake Moody might hit a 58-yarder, he might shank a 34-yarder. And he's done both. And you're like, oh, my God, I just can't do the psychological thing of the kicker. I can't do it. And while everybody wants to complain about special teams, and they should because they gave up so many game-changing plays last year, the reason why they were so bad statistically in numbers against in a negative sense was the kicker missed a lot of damn kicks. And it was like, God, this guy. I'd rather have less range and more reliability than I would like, oh, but he can kick a 60-yarder. Great. But he's going to miss a 34, and I can't have it. So it's going to be fascinating in training camp which direction they go. If Kyle Shanahan has a vote, and he has a major vote, but it's not the whole thing, because you got to empower your special teams coach and everything else. You hire a guy, you got to empower him. Then there's going to be a lot of people making a decision here. I understand, and they're going to look. They are going to be jaded towards Jake because they spent a 3rd-round pick on him. So you're going to have to knock out the champ, so to speak. You're not going to be able to just be okay and beat out Jake Moody. He's still going to be the kicker, and everybody's going to freak out. If you knock out the champ, you'll be the kicker. But if Kyle has a major vote, which he does, I just think if that kicker kicks well in training camp and in the preseason games, I think Kyle's going to lean towards the veteran because he can't run a game like that thinking, is my guy in a right mental space right now? That's just not what he does. And then as far as the other stuff about competition, it's really fascinating because he was talking about how he's not used to having January off and they had all this time and everybody's going to feel better and all that kind of stuff. But as they approach the draft, like I said, they could afford to take a chance on a Tyler Warren. They could say, hey, you know what? Let's just take the best player. We've got all these great players. We'll take Ashton Genty at 11 and Christian McCaffrey we're not sure about. Or, they could do those things. They could be redundant at a position. They could get depth. They could do. Now it's like, hey, they're going to have to. I'm just telling you, they're going to have to reach potentially at times for positional value. It's just the way it is. They're going to go into the draft like every team going, oh, just best player. You can't do best player. Best player might be Tyler Warren, but is it better to get a backup pass catcher from George Kittle or get a defensive tackle where you have none, or an offensive tackle or this or that? So that's going to be a major part of this thing and a major change from the past where the Niners had so much talent and not very many starting positions. And now they're going to have an 11-person or more draft and say, we've got to get, and this is going to be a difference too. Can I take a chance on a young player, or do I have to get a player who I think is ready to go? Like, I'll give you a great example. There's a kid named Demetrius Knight Jr. He's a linebacker. He's 24 out of South Carolina. He's a mature guy. He's seen as a finished product. They may opt for, and I just talked about this, reliability and the ability to adapt quicker to the NFL than upside, because they need a guy to start yesterday at linebacker. So I'm not saying they're going to take that guy in the first round, but if it's between a guy with some really good upside and a guy like that, who a lot of people think at 24 is one of the older prospects in the league, he's a finished product, the Niners are going to have to go on that side of things because they're going to need guys to start. They can't take a flyer on a 20-year-old who may have a bunch of upside but may not be ready for 2 or 3 years. They need dudes to play. So that's a long way. We did a lot of stuff this morning, but I think it was warranted. So least favorite day, it's April Fool's Day. Kyle Jed have all spoken. I played that for you. If you missed it, you can go back earlier in the show, or I will post the chapters a little bit later. Played 3 Kyle cuts. Thanks to David Lombardi for those. Played a Jed York who heaped praise upon Brock Purdy, which tells me further that they're dotting I's and crossing T's on this thing. That's thanks to our good friend Tracy Sandler. So that's where we got those pieces of video. Lynch lying season, I was talking about the offensive line. So that's where we are as far as 49ers are concerned. We're going to go to the Giants in a minute and give credit where credit is due to Jordan Hicks in a second. But anything else on Niners, not that we can't get back to it, but I went over a lot of stuff there over just past an hour, so I want to make sure that everybody's cool. What's up, Antonio? Good to see you, my friend. Love it. Whenever you jump in, say hello. And like I said, if you're new around here, please say hello to everybody, because we've developed an awesome community of people at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. If you would come over and join the page, make sure you have your alerts on, because we put videos out all the time. In fact, after the show yesterday, for example, I put out about a 5-minute video recapping what John Lynch said yesterday. We put out a couple of shorts yesterday. I have a couple of shorts already ready to shoot off today. So we've got a bunch of stuff that throughout the day we throw out a bunch of stuff. So we want to make sure you don't miss anything. So make sure that you have your alerts on, and that way you will catch everything. Plus, we post at johnlundunleashed.com. In fact, I haven't showed you johnlundunleashed.com. So before we get to baseball talk, let me just show you something here. Share screen. And let me share this with you. If you have not checked out the 7-round mock draft, which I will do every Monday, so today's Tuesday, but yesterday I posted this 49ers 7-round Monday mock 1.0, and I'll do those every Monday until the draft. So there's just a short video. Basically, it's saying go look at the draft. But there you go. And in that scenario, like I said, it's not only am I doing a draft, but this is through Pro Football Focus. So they draft their players and you draft around that. The 3 players I wanted were Mason Graham, Will Campbell, or Armand Membu, who I really like. Those 3 were all gone. So I was like, ugh. And I know a lot of people like Barron, but what I did was I traded down. I gave myself 1 trade during this thing, traded down with the Cardinals. I don't care if they're in my division because I moved 5 spots down and got a 2nd-round pick. Then I took Kenneth Grant, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I give you each pick. So there's the 1st rounder, 2nd rounder. I give you needs, what I'm thinking, who was available. So like Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, for example, there. And then I took a tackle. And then I went to the next one because I got this from the Cardinals. So I get a bonus pick, explain that, tell you who's on the board. Then who's on the board. And then I give you a little bit on him. So they do get him in my mock draft. So anyway, I did a mock draft for all this kind of stuff, and you can go to johnlundunleashed.com and look at that and see the rationale. So I did it a little bit differently than a lot of people do, but I think that it's effective and it's interesting. So you can go to the homepage. You can go to johnlundunleashed.com and get a ton of stuff. That's just the blog portion of the website. So if you want to check that out, that's what you can do. And all our social media is there and all those different kind of things. So you can check that out in one fell swoop. So I always tell you all the time, go here, go here, go here. That's got all the social media. It's got all the shows. It's got archives. It's got podcasts. It's got everything. So that's what the deal is right there. Did Casey Schmidt get traded to the Yankees? Is that a true story, or is that just something? Did I look at that? What did they get in return? Anyway, I'll check that out. I have a bunch of. This has become a joke. This was a long time joke. If you're new, you may not know it, but years ago, I went into there's a store by me, and I go there all the time, and I support this guy, and he's got all the rookie packs, and so I get tons of those kind of things all the time. And I got in like 2 packs, I got 2 Oh, that's an April Fool's joke. It's April Fool's. I get it. So, but I got 2 packs, and both of them had a rare Casey Schmidt signed card in it. So I got 2, and then I decided, because he was down at A-ball at the time, and he was, doing pretty well. He'd gotten off to a slow start, but he's hitting a bunch of home runs. And Mike Kohler, who now runs KNBR, was down there. He produces the San Jose Giants games, and he was starting to hit. And he's like, "Hey, you like this guy? He can play defense." And so I went deep into a bunch of Casey Schmidt rare cards, and then it was like, yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was an April Fool's joke. I forgot for like 2 seconds what day it was. All right, let me get to some Giants stuff. If you want to go back to the Niners, we can do that later. I've played a bunch of Kyle Shanahan for you. I played some Jed York for you. If people want to say that I was wrong already on Jordan Hicks, that's completely fine. I'll wear that. He was amazing last night. I mean, there's just no way around it. He pitched at home in Houston, which I think that's why he had a little velocity uptick, as you can see here from Alex Pavlovich. 6 shutout innings, 1 hit, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. He hit 99 13 times and averaged 98.1 with a sinker. Buster Posey never wavered. Hicks was going to be in the rotation, and this is why. I've never doubted, and I don't doubt the talent that Jordan Hicks has and how hard he can throw a baseball in particular. It's just last year, as I watched him fade down the stretch, I thought to myself, this guy's not a starting pitcher in the league. He would be a hammer in the 7th inning, and just for a second to stay on that, because I'm not going to get off this train yet, is that 98 would have been 102 out of the pen throwing in the 7th inning, and that's 3 to 4 times a week. And I think that's more valuable than him pitching in the rotation. He was awesome last night. Awesome at home. Had a little bit more adrenaline, which is why he was throwing harder. But last year, when I'm watching him throw these pitches at 96, 97 on a consistent basis, I'm like, I'd rather have him 102 out of the pen 3 to 4 days a week as my 7th guy, Duvall in the 8th and Walker in the 9th. I think then you're playing 6-inning baseball, and I think that's more valuable. Now, having said that, He was incredible last night. He was awesome. And if he can maintain that over a long period of time, that's incredibly valuable. No doubt about it. But I don't see a seventh inning guy now. Now, maybe Lou Trevino can be that. Maybe there's a number of guys who can step up in that role. That's completely fine. But what I'm saying is that if he tires out again, and the same thing happened last year, I was catching a bunch of grief early in the season. Look how good Hicks is. Look how good Hicks is. Look how good Hicks is. And I'm like, okay, let's just wait. And he was 5 and fly, and then he got tired. And I was like, nobody hit me up after that. It was weird. I was like, what's going on? And I wasn't taking any victory laps or going, that's just not me. And I didn't say anything. And then this year it's the same thing. So he apparently put on 15 pounds, which is nice. He's another year away from relieving, and his arm is stretched out for longer outings. He went 6 yesterday, not 5, and he only threw 72 pitches. And the thing that was amazing about him, and if he can be efficient like this, then Jordan Hicks is right, and the Giants are right, and I'm clearly wrong. But he went 22 pitches in the first inning, and then over the next 5, he threw 50. He threw 50 pitches over the final 5 innings of this outing. 10, obviously. We don't do math around here, but this is pretty easy. 10 pitches an inning on average after throwing 22 in the first inning. He was probably too amped up. That's his hometown. And he was probably too amped up with a bunch of people, and they kept showing him in the crowd, all the people in the crowd. So he was clearly a little bit too amped up. He settled into the game and threw 6 innings, and he was awesome. He was incredible. And if Jordan Hicks can give him that, and Robbie Ray gave him 5 strong, and then just the wheels completely fell off on Sunday, but it's an encouraging outing to me. And Verlander, I think, is going to be better and better, and Logan Webb's Logan Webb. So all of a sudden now you've got a solid 4-man rotation, and we'll see what Landon Roop does. It's going to be Webb today, then Landon Roop. We'll see what Roop does. I would rather have Birdsong, but we'll see. But there's a couple of guys. And then Kyle Harrison had an encouraging outing in Sacramento 2 nights ago or 2 days ago or whatever it is, 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago. So that's an encouraging sign, even though I think Harrison may long-term be a long guy or even a short guy, because I think that his stuff can play, and his 94, 95, if he's a reliever, could even be up at 96, 97 with the kind of rise and so forth that he has. So who knows? But then they have a bunch of young players down below, which is kind of one of the reasons behind the Hicks thing was they've got so much starting pitching depth, it seems, and they don't have a guy like Hicks who could throw 102 out of the pen in the 7th inning that I would, again, 3 to 4 days a week, I'd rather have that. But for one night, and probably for just like last year, for the beginning of the season, I think Jordan Hicks is going to be good. I didn't think that he wasn't going to be good last night. It's just the longevity. And then if he is struggling, then you got to find somebody, then it's a different role. Then you got to take a starter, and then he becomes, because he's a really good 1-inning guy throwing 102 gas. So good job by Jordan Hicks. If Buster Posey, as Pavlovich said, was like, he's going to be in the rotation and pounding the table, I never heard that, but he says it's true. So it is, because he's a great reporter. So that's the way it is. This is impressive because we all love velo. We don't care. We all love it. So there it is right there. Those are his hardest 5 pitches from a starter: 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. I mean, you got to round it up. So nice job by Jordan Hicks. So it was awesome. As far as the start to the season is concerned, and I do have the box score from last night, so let me throw this up for you from last night. Draft standings. There we go. There's the box from last night. It's only a few games, and I understand that. Here, let me get past that guy. It's only a few games, and I understand that clearly. But again, you're starting to look at some things here where Jung-Hoo Lee is, scoring a couple of runs. He scored, I think, 6 on the season now. Matt Chapman's off to a really nice start. Elliot Ramos, and I know it's only 1 for 5, but he's looked really good at the plate. He's looked very comfortable at the plate. Wilmer Flores, as I said, another home run for Wilmer Flores. He has 3, and he had 4 all of last season. So again, another guy that I may have to eat crow here early on the season. Bob Melvin kept saying that he's got his legs under him. He's not hurt. 2 hits last night, 4 RBIs, and a home run. He's got an 1179 OPS. We're very early into the season, 4 games in, but very encouraging. Yaz had a couple of hits. I'd love it if he were a platoon guy. And there's Tyler Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald looks to me like he's going to be a high strikeout guy, and that's just the way it's going to be. He had a couple more strikeouts. But if he does get on base, he's an athlete, and they don't have enough of those. I mean, that's just what it is. And then as far as the bullpen is concerned, again, another solid outing by the bullpen. Hicks we talked about. Duvall looks like he's back. Bivens makes me nervous as hell, even though I think the story is really cool from last year. It makes it finally as a 30-year-old. Bailed out by Eric Miller. That made me a little bit nervous, and then Ryan Walker finished everything up. So look, they've looked good. Houston's a good team. They lose guys every single year, but they always have solid starting pitching, and you can see right there, Hicks the final line there. 2 base on balls, 6 strikeouts, 72 pitches, 22 in the first inning, settled down from there. Camilo Duvall, we saw Bivens. He makes you a little bit nervous. I hope that he can pitch to what he did last year. Bullpens are weird year to year. Eric Miller bailed him out of that whole thing, and then Ryan Walker looked like Ryan Walker with a couple of strikeouts in the 9th inning. So, look, it's a nice start for the Giants. I'm not overreacting to anything, but there's a couple of guys, specifically Hicks was good last night, but just the way that they're swinging the bat and the way they look different. Jung-Hoo Lee's having good at-bats. Chapman's having good at-bats. Ramos, I'm not ready to say he's the first half guy of last year versus the second half guy, but he's looked really good. So there's some guys swinging the bat, and obviously Wilmer Flores has done what he's done. So that's what the Giants are doing, and they're in Houston again tonight. So that's the story on the Giants. If you want to hit up some Giants, that is fine. A couple of quick things. Let me go to the A's thing first, and then there's a couple of baseball notes that I want to hit. So nice win by the Giants last night. We won't continually talk a ton about the A's, and I think I'm going to go tomorrow to the day game just so that I can quit speculating about the stadium. But in seeing it last night, and this is Susan Slusser's piece in the Chronicle this morning, Sacramento A's and, by the way, Sacramento A's and Chicago Cubs players on Monday avoided discussing what led them to the Sutter Health Park, but did agree that Major League games at Manor League Stadium is strange. And again, I want to make sure that I reiterate this, and it won't be heard as this and seen as this because people see and hear what they want. It's not a rip on Sacramento. It's not a rip on the stadium itself. It's nothing like that. They shouldn't be playing in a minor league park. It's a minor league park, and it's a cool minor league park, and they've done a nice job, and they've done renovations, and I've talked to a bunch of people who were at the game last night and who have seen it and went to exhibition games there and have been there for minor league games and all these kind of things. But as you can just see right there, that's not a major league park, and the A's shouldn't be playing in a minor league park, and Major League Baseball should be ashamed of themselves that they're allowing the A's to play 3 years in that stadium. Sacramento, I think the fans are amazing. I think that the atmosphere in watching it on TV and then talking to people who were there last night, texting and actually talking to people last night who were there, said the exact same thing, that it's really cool for a minor league park, that to have the people that were there last night, they were into it and they were enthused and it was loud. But then when I see balls get hit out of the ballpark, which there are 4, so I wonder if this is going to be a bandbox. The Cubs scored 18 last night and had 4 home runs. One, Kyle Tucker hit one to right field that looked like it was a can of corn to right field, and it just kept carrying out. And then I see people on the lawn scurrying like it's spring training to go after the ball. And like I said, that's kind of cool, but the novelty of that is going to wear off really, really fast. And what Major League Baseball should have done is said, look, A's, find another place. If you want to move to Sacramento and have a stadium built there and say that it's a major league city, I have no issue with that. It's not a Sacramento thing. And it's not against Sutter Health Park. It's not against that. It's just that's a minor league park, and you can see it when you look at it. When they do the tight shot and they're throwing, it's the pitcher and the batter. It doesn't look bad. It was enthusiastic last night. It was good. The fans are really, really good. It's not a knock on that. You shouldn't be playing 3 years in a minor league park. And for baseball to do that, and the way that they've treated this whole A's situation over the last number of years, and we don't need to go over all that because everybody knows what it is, but to allow John Fisher to manipulate this situation when he doesn't have a home because Vegas is far from done, to just kind of have these guys running around as vagabonds, they should have just said, look, you got to work it out. You got to work it out. You and Oakland have got to come to some sort of a thing. They should have had an arbitrator in there. They should have done something and just said, look, you've got to be in a major league park. I don't know if that was playing, splitting time with the Giants and giving them some money, which wouldn't have been ideal. I understand that. Whatever the case may be, it's just too bad. I like the A's. I like the A's organization. I know a lot of people within the A's organization. Beyond the novelty of this, I don't know how much I'll talk about the A's, but just last night, it was just weird. And again, maybe a lot of people don't care about this, but this looks like a portable at your high school. Remember those portables that you would have to go do classes in? Like this is where the media was held. It's just not professional. And like I said, I like to have fun and it's just baseball and all this kind of thing, but you're a multi-billion-dollar industry and your press conferences are in a portable. It just looks ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And then Josh Dubois says this, the times the A's allowed 18 runs in a home game 4 times in 4,493 regular season games, 1 time at Sutter Health Park. Maybe it's just that was just one of the days. But my fear is that it's a great hitting park anyway, and those balls that died on the warning track for minor league players, major league players are just different, and it could be a bandbox. And I did say, and my son bet this for me, I did do that bet. Remember I told you at the beginning of the season there was a prop bet that I liked? Brent Rooker plus 2,500 to lead the American League in home runs. Yes, above Aaron Judge, who already has, I think, 4 with the those torpedo bats that the Yankees are rocking, which has become a really big deal. But I don't know. He's not hitting in Oakland. It sure seems to me like it's a hell of a lot easier to hit it out of that park than it is Oakland. So we'll see, because he hit, I think, 60% of his home runs on the road last year. And if he's got an easier park to hit in, which it clearly is, to hit balls out of, maybe Brent Rooker hits 60 home runs this year. I don't know. But it's one game. I don't want to rip the fans. I love the enthusiasm. It came through on the TV. I owe it to the show to go up there. So I think tomorrow I'm going to and just see what the park is all about and the buzz and talk to people and everything else. And like I said, once the novelty of the park wears off, I don't know how much I'm going to talk about the A's, because I've told you in the past that they cost us money at 95.7 the game, me and Greg and I, in bonuses, because not enough people listened to him and watched him. And I know that the A's have a hardcore fan base, and that's cool. And I actually like the team. You know, I like Lawrence Butler and I like Soderstrom, and they've got a bunch of young, interesting players on their team. But about me, it's about who's going to, how many eyeballs, who's listening, who's watching, all those kind of things. And I don't know, in that regard, how much people are going to care, other than talking about the ballpark at the beginning of the season, whether they should be there, what the atmosphere is like. And after that, it's kind of like, all right, it's back to being A's baseball. This is interesting. And I thought this was really cool. Whoever came up with this idea, here are the introductions where everybody's wearing Ricky's 24.
Wearing number 24, Jeffrey Springs. Number 24, Luis Severino. Number 24, Zach Geloff. Wearing 24, Mason Miller. Number 24, Lawrence Butler.
All right, a couple of things. So that's what I mean. That was kind of hokey, and I don't know. I don't know and I don't mean to rip the PA announcer. That was kind of a minor league PA announcer. It wasn't very good. I like the 24 concept. What I was thinking during the game is, Ricky wore 24 and 35. I mean, could you have done something like that where one guy was 24, one guy, like every other guy, 24, 35, 24, 35. But I guess they decided to go with 24. Completely understand that. It was really cool. And Ricky's daughters were there. And I love Rick Anderson. He was on our show a number of times. He was hilarious. One of the funniest shows we ever did was Pop and I were doing a show, and I think it was on 95.7. And Ricky was supposed to come on at like 10:30. And we did our show. Actually, it was when we were doing it 12 to 3. So Ricky was supposed to come on at like 12:30. And Greg's like, he's not coming on. He's going to come on, but it's whenever, like, Ricky doesn't understand the concept of radio. And we have you scheduled at 12:30. Like, he'll just come on when Ricky decides to come on. And the whole show, I'm like, he's going to come on. He's going to come on. He's going to come on. And, every segment, like, Ricky could call anytime. And then, of course, we're off the air at 3, and Ricky calls at like 2:57. And we get him on the air. And it's like, like what? You told me to call between 12 and 3. It's 2:57. And so we kept the show long and everything like that. But it was hilarious, the whole show. Greg's like, he's not going to call. 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 He's certainly not going to be on time. It was just hilarious. And then Ricky was amazing. Ricky in third person and all that kind of, it's just awesome. I can't believe he's gone. And so that was really, really cool what they did. But still, even that to me, before the game, as I was watching it, was kind of minor league-ish. It was just weird, the whole thing. So look, I like the team. I love Sacramento. I love the fans. I think the energy in the park was great. But as I'm watching it, it kind of had a spring training minor league feel to it. And I cannot believe that the A's are going to play in this park for 3 years. And I cannot believe that Major League Baseball has bungled this situation, and that's the word, bungled this situation to the level that they have. You can't let a Major League team be in that park for 3 years. The Chicago Cubs were coming to town. The New York Mets are coming to town. Like these, it just is weird. Build them. If they're going to stay there, that's fine. Build them a Major League park. Major League Baseball is professional enough to think to themselves, we can't have this for 3 years. We can't. But they've just screwed the whole situation up with the A's so much that they're just like, whatever. We just want this guy out of our hair. Is he going to get a stadium possibly in Las Vegas? Fine. We're sick of the bitching and moaning and the back and forth from Oakland. They could have stepped in at any point and said, look, you got to make this work in a major league park. We will not allow a minor league park for our team. You're supposed to look out for the betterment of those teams. You know, I mean, it's just one of those situations, and I know your parents do this all the time to you, and it drives you crazy. But what if every team played in a minor league park? We want to play in a minor league park. Like, no, you can't. So there's that. All right, let me go to that because I'm going to do some dubs and grizz and some random stuff. And I do have a sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol that I think is really, really weird. And I guess I should have probably looked this story up, but I just have the headline for it because I think it's just weird. But maybe I'll do that too because I probably owe that. Let me see, make sure that I don't have any. Oh, baseball-wise. Let me do a couple of things baseball-wise. The torpedo bats. We haven't really gotten into the torpedo bats. To me, because chicks dig the long ball and I like offense, I don't have a problem with it. I have a feeling, kind of like the tush push, which is going to be outlawed, that for some reason baseball will give you every advantage if you're a pitcher, but they won't give you an advantage if you're an offensive player. Like, in other words, we're going to allow this, we're going to allow that, we're going to, like, from a pitching standpoint, and then offense, they're kind of So if the torpedo bat is helping, and there was an interview with the guy who helped design it, he was with the Yankees for a couple of years. He's a really interesting guy, like super smart, MIT, all this kind of stuff. He was in aerospace engineering and all this kind of stuff, and he wasn't into baseball at all. And he decided he wanted to change his career, like mid-career, and got into baseball and physics and all these different things. And then the Yankees hired him. And then this year now, it's his first year with the Marlins. And it's a combination of analytics and just way too above my head smarts. And he designed this bat, and now everybody's going bananas. And then Brian Dela Cruz, who's with Cincinnati now, he had 7 RBIs last night with the torpedo bat. So I don't even know if it's going to be legal. I just think the baseball is going to go, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it makes a ton of sense. Like, you know, when in technology, just in any aspect of technology in the world, when somebody comes up with something, you go, God, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? What it essentially is this guy looked and said, not everybody hits the ball in the sweet spot. Obviously, most guys don't. So they do the research and they figure this is where the majority of the time bat hits ball. And it's right around in the label area. So what they did is they fattened that area up a little bit and made it look like a torpedo or a bowling pin, and said this is more where the ball is hit a higher percentage of the time. So let's put the sweet spot. Let's do more barrel down in this area. And therefore, that's where you hit the ball more of the time. You don't hit it up here as much. You hit it down here a little bit more near the label. And so what they did is they fattened that area to make the sweet spot bigger, which is really brilliant. And I thought as I was thinking about this, I'm like, why wasn't that obvious years ago? Like, okay, the majority of the time, especially given analytics in baseball, majority of the time you're hitting the ball here. So why don't we make the sweet spot here? And therefore the ball is going to go further. So it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Now, a lot of guys are defending it and saying, hey, it's more the player than it is the bat. And I'm not saying it's not, but it's the same thing with, you know, performance enhancing drugs. You still got to be able to hit a baseball. I'm not saying you can't, but what those things did is that kept you fresher longer. It was just, you still got to hit the ball. But a lot of times the difference between a home run and a deep fly out is 5 or 10 feet. So if the torpedo bat can give you 5 more feet or 10 more feet, you're going to hit 35 home runs instead of 28 or whatever. Maybe it's not that many, but I mean, still, or you're going to have a higher velo rate. It's going off your bat, not 97 or 98. It's coming off your bat at like 110. Now, again, maybe it's not that big of a difference, but every miles per hour means that you have a better chance. This is proven, a better chance to get a hit. So if you're hitting the ball harder, if you're hitting the ball just even a little bit further, then that's going to impact things. So we'll see. The thing to me that's fascinating about the torpedo / bowling pin bat is how long they allow it. Because if a bunch of teams are like, well, we don't have that technology, or our guys aren't into it. And what the guy explained yesterday, who's now with the Marlins, is that this technology, he had it back in like 22 and 23. It's just there wasn't a lot of players who were convinced that it was going to work. And he got it to the point and worked it to a point where a lot of guys were testing it out, and they would change the bat a little bit, test it, like they're using it in batting practice and things like that. And now he got it to a point where it's good to go. And the Yankees felt great about it, and they used it in the offseason. They're like, I'm going to use this thing. So there's a number of guys around the league who are using it. And then there's another bunch of guys. I heard Pete Alonso say this yesterday, that he's going to order some and just see what it does. He goes, I got a feeling I'm going to probably stay with my bat, but I'm going to order some and see. And all this, I just have a feeling that it's going to take over the league, because anything that helps as a society, we talk about this all the time, we're a reactive society. So anything that's going to help somebody, that's why performance enhancing drugs took off like fire. And we all knew they were being used when we were covering the league back then. We all knew it was being used, but it was just that much more of an advantage, because there's so much money at play. If I can hit 30 home runs instead of 25, how many more millions of dollars is that going to make me on the free agent market? These guys are going to try anything. They always have. So it's interesting. But my whole thing is, how long are they going to keep it legal? Because I just have a feeling that baseball is going to, And to me, it's like, if I'm running baseball, more offense, more runs on the board. Yes, please. People like that. It's proven. We like it. We don't want 2-1. I mean, they're fun. 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. Those are fun to watch. But we want runs. We want runs on the board. Let's go. And then this thing is just hilarious to me. And then we'll move on to the Dubs a little bit to end the show. I'm not athletic. You know that. Not athletic. Never been athletic. Played, tried, worked hard. Played baseball in college. Played baseball in high school. Tried to play basketball, no chance. Tried to play football, no chance. Played lacrosse in college, was decent at it. But I would never call myself an athlete. But I've never done some of these things that you hear athletes do. They slip in the shower, all these domestic issues. Jeremy Affeldt cut his hand with a knife, cutting frozen hamburgers. Like, you hear athletes all the time. The elite of the elite doing just silly stuff that you've never done, even though you're incredibly non-athletic. So Freddie Freeman was out of the lineup because he had a mishap entering the shower at home and tweaked the same surgically repaired ankle. Dave Roberts said won't be available. He is day to day. And I thought to myself, I've had to take showers while I probably was overserved. Like, I got to wake up, or I've taken, I don't know, how many showers in your lifetime? Never thought about it. But now that Freddie Freeman slipped in the shower, I've never slipped in the shower. Not one time, not even close. And now today, watch, I'm going to crack my head open in the shower. I've never slipped in the shower. And I've heard a ton of stuff about guys slipping in the shower. And I've taken showers in some shady places, like a regular shower, you shouldn't slip. You gotta, but like bathtubs in a hotel room where it's like they don't have one of those mats or anything like that. It's pretty shady places you're not used to, whatever. Lots of hotels. I've taken thousands and thousands and thousands of showers in my lifetime, just like you. Never slipped. Never really even come close to slipping that I can remember. So anyway, he's a professional athlete. He slipped in the shower. And I've heard that a number of times from guys. That guy's not playing. He slipped a disc in his back because he slipped in the shower. Tweaked his ankle because he slipped in the shower. It's like, you're a professional athlete. You hear about those stories all the time. Like, this dude did this, or he slept wrong on his neck, or I'm as unathletic, especially at this point in my life, as they come. And I've never done that. Like, never done that. Never, ever, ever. Just saying. It's like, okay, slipped in the shower. All right. Whatever. Let's see. Hi, Mark. What bat company is making these torpedo bats? Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to find out. I got to do a little bit more. I hate April Fools too. It's my least favorite day. That's what it says at the beginning of the top of episode 103, least favorite day. Like I said, it's my least favorite day. I mean, there's just no question. Least favorite day. Not a big fan. All right. Let's see. Where are we now? Episode 103, least favorite day. Like I said, John, Kyle, Jed have all spoken in the last 2 days. Played a lot of Kyle Shanahan for you. If you missed it, you can go back or wait till I post the chapters and you can check that out. Kyle Cuts, that's what I played. Lynch line season, talking about the offensive line. Giants recap, all due respect to Jordan Hicks, who was awesome last night. A's game 1 from Sacramento. The Cubs score 18. Is it going to be a bandbox? Plus, it was just weird. Felt like spring training and, I don't know, minor league baseball wrapped into one. Love the stadium, love Sacramento, love the people up there, but they shouldn't be playing in a minor league park. Thought it was cool that they honored Ricky's 24. Would have liked to have seen 24 and 35, but you probably can't do that because leagues aren't fun. And then Dubs Grizz is tonight, and this is I know we say this all the time in sports, but this is the most important stretch of the season. We say that all the time, but here you go. So as they're fighting for positioning, as we know, Memphis is in crazy mode. I've never seen a team so out of control and they just fired their coach. So This is, I'm not going to call it a must win, but damn, if you lose to Memphis, that's a bad loss. And then you play the Lakers, they're reeling a little bit, and then it becomes tough. And this is why it's really important to win these games against Memphis and LA. Denver, you don't play well against. Houston is just rocking and rolling. Phoenix probably doesn't have Kevin Durant for that game, so that's good news. We just saw San Antonio. They stink. Tankola. Portland, Tankola. And then it could come down, and probably will, just because it's the way things work, to the Clippers, who are right there with you. Now they're the 7, you're the 6, and they're one game back because of their loss the other day to Oklahoma City. But it just, to me, and remember, the Clippers have a 3-zip series lead, so even if you beat them, so you can't be tied. You can't go into that last game of the year like one back of the Clippers, because even if you beat the Clippers, then you lose the tiebreaker. So you've either got to be tied or one ahead of the Clippers in that whole situation, then win that final game, because if you're one behind, then you can't catch the Clippers, and you're probably going to be 7. To me, Memphis is going to go from their perch right now, and that's the rest of the way. Let me just jump up the standings here really quick, because you love when I do that. No, you don't. But the standings, and it always starts with that bracket. So there you go. Right now, that's where things stand. Timberwolves and Clippers, one back of the Warriors in the loss column. Warriors still stuck in that whole thing in the bracket opposite the Nuggets. That could all change, though, because let's move this thing down here a little bit as we look at the Western Conference. We always talk about it. Oklahoma City set. Houston is set with the 27. This is where it gets interesting. The Warriors are 3 back of the Nuggets, so they probably couldn't catch the Nuggets, but then again, with a low amount of games remaining, but you do play them, so you could conceivably be within 2, but that's not going to happen, and they have the season series on you, so you're probably not going to catch the Nuggets. You could get as high as 4 potentially, because the Lakers are 2 ahead of you in the loss column, and you play the Lakers after the Grizzlies. So the 2 teams ahead of you in the 4-5, the Lakers at 29 losses, and the Grizz, who are tied with you in the loss column. The Grizzlies right now are just really struggling and just fired their coach. And so now you win tonight, you're 44-31, and they're 44-32. So you jump them to 5, which is absolutely huge, because then what do? Let me go back to the bracket. So you jump Memphis with winning tonight, and guess what? You're in that 4-5 spot. You'd play the Lakers in the first round and the Thunder in the second round. And look, the Thunder are great, but I've said this time and time again, they're a great 82-game team. They have the best record in the NBA. You see the Cavs at 60-15, and you see the Thunder at 63-12. They're awesome, but it doesn't mean a young team can't struggle in the playoffs. I'd much rather be on the bracket side of Lakers in the first round to the Thunder than I would Nuggets in the first round to the Rockets. I don't think you're getting by the Nuggets is the main reason why. I'd rather play the Rockets than the Thunder in the second round, but they're both young basketball teams, so I think the Warriors could punch in the face early in the series and make those teams nervous. Doesn't mean they're going to win those series. I'm simply saying that I'd rather play the Lakers in the first round. So you beat the Grizzlies tonight, and you take over the 5 spot, and you're on the other side of the bracket, which is what I would prefer, and you should probably prefer. Then after that, I think Memphis is going to struggle. I think the Lakers are really up and down, so you could get as high as 4, and then you'd be in a 4-5 series with the Lakers or whatever team was in the 5 spot, and you'd have home court. Because that's the biggest problem right now is 3-6, you don't have home court. 4-5 as we sit right now, and if you win tonight, you're not getting home court. But if you can somehow 2 back of the Lakers with 8 to play, but you play the Lakers, so after this game against Memphis, you win that, you take on the Lakers, you're in a great spot. Conversely, you lose tonight to a team that you should beat and is in complete disarray in the Grizzlies. That's the worst loss of the season. You go to 43-32. And right there, you have the same amount of losses as the Clippers and the T-Wolves. You miss a golden opportunity to move into 5 and get away from the Nuggets in the first round. So tonight becomes a really big game because you get out of the Nuggets in the first round. There would still be 7 games. I understand all that, but it's a really big game against a team that is struggling. And part of the deal is in sports in general is you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And tonight, you're supposed to beat the Grizzlies. I don't care if they're ahead of you in the pecking order. You should beat the Grizzlies tonight. There's no question in my mind. So give me your thoughts on that before I go to Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol and jump out of here, because I need a break before I jump on with Damon at 11 o'clock. Let's see here. What else do we got? I think that's good. All right, let me give you a Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol here. So I'm going to be honest with you. I just read the headline here because I didn't have the stomach to read the rest of it. Look, we all want to look young. I talked about Dr. Riopel all the time. In fact, let me talk to you about Dr. Riopel before I do this whole thing. So Dr. Riopel is awesome. He is the fine sponsor of the program because this is going to tie into the Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol. The Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center. I am doing the testosterone replacement, low T. You hear this all the time, low testosterone. You think to yourself, I don't have low T. Well, if you're feeling lethargic, if you're feeling tired, if you've got the tire, you can't get rid of the stomach fat and all those kind of things, and your metabolism is slowing down. All those things are low T. Your sexual drive isn't where it should be. What you're going to do is you're going to take a quick blood test. They're going to tell you, yep, this is what we need to boost it up to. It's not going to be like this crazy level and you're going to be like you're 22 years old. It's just going to be exactly what you need to feel better. And I've done this stuff for years. And when I discovered Dr. Riopel doing this, I didn't know he did it. And then when he told me he did, it was a real godsend to me because I was going in for weekly shots at that point. It wasn't a great experience for me. He does the blood test, checks you. Okay, here's where you need to be. You go in for a procedure and you're good for months and you feel a ton better. So if you click on that QR code right there, it's going to take you to the website at Dr. Riopel and you can make an appointment, ask them all about it, tell them I sent you over there, and they're going to take care of you and make you feel better. And then I tell you this all the time. My wife, she had stem cells treatments. It's been over a month for the elbow and the shoulder. She told me the other day she's feeling about 90% on the shoulder, about 70% on the elbow, feeling absolutely great. But the big thing she's so excited about is her foot. She's had all sorts of problems with it and hasn't been as active as she'd like to be. And now she said it's at 100%. And that was only done like 2-3 weeks ago. So stem cell is absolutely magical. If you click on the QR code right there, and again, go to the website, make an appointment, talk to Dr. Riopel, that is a lot of times the answer, the solution to all this pain that you're feeling. And he can tell you exactly what he can help with and what it does and all those kind of things. I told you before, Dr. Riopel was one of the first with the sports science side of his business. He did this with Bartolo Colon years and years and years ago. He's one of the first in California to do it. So you can trust him. He's absolutely great. So click on that QR code right there and it'll take you right to the website. And they do all sorts of other procedures as well. Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center. Check them out right now online. Or as I said, you could click on that QR code. Let me pop it up one more time. Dr. Jeffrey Riopel and Riopel Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center. 3, 2, 1. All right, there you go. All right, this kind of ties into it. And like I said, I just didn't. This is your Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol. The reason why, by the way, I've got to change the bed on the Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol because yesterday, and I told you they do this, people are like, why don't you play the open the Caboose Pistol? I'm like, okay, I will. And then I did, and it's Spirit in the Sky. And then YouTube made me pull it. They're like, yeah, you can't use that music because all the music I have, I pay for on the show. And so that one I forgot. I made that a long time ago, and so I've got to get new voice work, and I'm in the process of doing that. And then I got to put a different bed that I own underneath it because YouTube made me cut it out yesterday. They were like, you can't monetize your show, and I'm like, why not? And I go back to it, and they're like, yeah, Spirit in the Sky, you can't use that. You don't have the rights to it. So then I had to edit that out of the show yesterday so that so everyone could view the show. So I'm not going to play the Sweet Clean Family Friendly Caboose Pistol until I can get a new open for it. So that's why I'm not playing it today. I like the open. It's great. I just need to get a new music bed under it because these guys are like, nope, can't use it. It's like, come on, man. Can we have a little fun? No. We all want our dime. All right. This is weird. Jessica Simpson took to the internet to share why she's drinking snake sperm. I don't even want to know. But the point of it is, and I talked about Dr. Riopel before. I don't care. Like at this point, if I have to do that to stay young or look good or my skin or whatever the case may be, my digestive system, you can just put me in the box. You can nail it shut and you can put me in the box because I'm not doing that. Like everybody's got a limit. I'm not going to drink snake sperm. I'm just not. I don't care if it's for my face. I don't care if it's for digestive. I don't care. I don't care if it'll save my hair. I don't care. I don't care. It could be the miracle of miracles. It could be the absolute fountain of youth. And I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not. I don't care. I could put it in a smoothie and not taste it. I'm not doing it. I just have a fundamental problem with that. And I don't believe it. Let's talk about snake oil. Like you're a snake oil salesman. You're a snake sperm salesman. It's the same thing. Like if you're saying it's snake something or other for years and years and years, a snake oil salesman, that's a real negative thing. And now she's believing in snake sperm. Sorry. Nope. Nope. Don't care what it solves. Don't care if it's the actual fountain of youth. Don't care. I don't care if it'll reverse my aging 10 years. Don't care. I need it, clearly, but not doing it. There you go. That is my sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. Snake oil, snake sperm. Not doing it. Not doing it. Don't care. See, I knew it would get this kind of reaction. Oh, I love it. Does she go? See, this is the only one that I could put up on the board. Does she grow a rattle? She's had a weird life, hasn't she? From like whatever that call the show was with Nick Lachey and all the different things. And she was married, I think, to Eric Johnson, the former Niners tight end, right? Weird. And now she's doing that. Sorry, not going to do it. Don't care. Yeah, that is why I don't use higher ground anymore. And again, look, I have no problem, but then they just, I looked into it and they're like the amount of money that you have to pay on a regular basis to have those versus what I have now. And then I just went to a website and they've got music that's good music. I don't want it to sound like some cheesy thing, but they have good music there and then I can use those beds. And then by paying those people, then they get their residual or everything like that. And that's fine. But you try to play anything and there's like, out. So yesterday, because I forgot that was a music bed. That's why I hadn't played it. I forgot that was the music bed I had used, and they had cut it before. So literally, I got done and I edit the show and I look at everything, and then they're like, and it's got this X through monetization, and I'm like, what? And then I remembered. I'm like, I used Spirit in the Sky, and that's what they did. They're like, can't use it. Money is going to them, and I'm like, what? The 1 cent? A lot of good reaction to that, by the way. Tube Snake Boogie by ZZ Top. Yeah, I probably can't use that either. But I know what you're saying. All right. You heard what I said, JJ Rader. That's what she's doing. And I don't care. Like I said, it could be the fountain of youth. Like, oh my God, this is good. All you got to do is drink this down and 10 years of your life. You get along. You look 10 years younger, 20 years younger. You get to live that much longer. I'm like, nah, I've lived a good life. Not having it. Not doing it. Yeah, tonight's game is absolutely huge, Skaters on Baseball. Massive for the Warriors. This is the difference between getting to the other side of the bracket with 7 games remaining. I understand there's a lot of things that could happen, but you win this game tonight, you drop Memphis down, you get into a situation where these next 2, where you beat Memphis, you beat the Lakers, you could be sitting in the 4-hole. And now you might play the Lakers, you might play Memphis, which everybody's trying to play Memphis, but you might play one of those teams, but in the 4-hole, now you're the home court team. And even though I'd rather play Houston in the second round than Oklahoma City in the second round, you have to get to the second round. I know that is breaking news, and I'm giving you insight that you've never heard or seen before. But to get to the second round, you can quote me on this, you have to win in the first round. I don't want to play the Nuggets in the first round. And Oklahoma City's young. So do I think they're going to beat Oklahoma City? Probably not. But do they have a chance? Sure. It's a young basketball team. Do they have a chance to beat Denver? I guess, but not really. Not what I've seen. But they do see them again. All right. I love that there are snake emojis on my screen right now. That is beautiful. All right. But all right, Pine Needle, send me those. But I do have some music, and all I got to do is not be lazy and make sure that I redo that, because I do. I like the open and everything. It's just I forgot that I can't play that music. So there you go. All right, that is episode 103, my least favorite day. Look out for it. It's April Fool's Day. I told you why, because there was a producer fired, and it was my fault because we did an April Fool's joke, and they believed it. They should have known. But John, Kyle, and Jed all have spoken. We played that for you. Thanks to David Lombardi for providing that, as well as Tracy Sandler. So we played all that. If you missed it, I'm going to put the chapters up, or you can go back right now at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Lying season, Giants recap, Jordan Hicks, A's game 1 from Sacramento, the number 24. The Ricky tribute was great. Dubs Grizz tonight, massive. Snake, sperm, and random stuff. That is your sweet, clean, family-friendly caboose pistol. Did I miss anything video-wise? I think I hit everything up. Thanks to those for watching today, however you are watching. Good number of people right now on X. Thank you very much, at John Lund Radio. Make sure you follow me there. Hit me up. Of course, the people on Instagram today, at John Lund Radio, watching on Twitch. Bay Area Sports Collective on YouTube. Please join, because it's my show, Polly's show, Tom Tolbert's show. And then you know, all the snake stuff, unbelievable. Then you know when those shows are on, make sure you get those alerts on. And on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, lots of reasons. Great group of people that we hang out with every single day. But the other thing is keep those alerts on, please, because like I said, other than the show yesterday, I posted about 4 other pieces of content on YouTube. That's a reason why you join. Also, reason why you keep those alerts on. Like John Lynch, the things he said, I did about a 5-7 minute recap on that. I'll probably go back later today and do a recap with what Kyle Shanahan said. So I'll post that. I always post shorts. And then if news breaks, then we do that as well. So make sure you have those alerts on. And please, 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 on this show today, if you're in the room or if you want to jump over real quick, please hit the thumbs up. That helps our algorithm, which pushes people to our show and makes things better and so forth. So that's at John Lund Unleashed. Thanks to everybody for watching on all those channels. Thanks to everybody for hanging out tonight. Snake Month. Lots of good snake talk on the chat line right now. Don't forget, last thing, I'm on with Damon in about an hour at about 11 o'clock over on his channel. So if you just can't get enough and you have nothing better to do, please hang out with Damon and I at about 11 o'clock. It's always a great conversation with Damon Bruce. So we'll do that at 11 o'clock. Everybody have a great day. I appreciate it. Happy Tuesday to you. We will speak tomorrow on this show, John Lund Unleashed, and at 11 o'clock with Damon Bruce. Have a great day.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!